good time starts with a great wardrobe. Next stop, JCPenney. Family get-togethers to fancy occasions, wedding season too. We do it all in style. Dresses, suiting, and plenty of color to play with. Get fixed up with brands like Liz Claiborne, Worthington, Stafford, and J. Farrar. Oh, and Thereabouts for kids. Super cute and extra affordable. Check out the latest in-store, and we're never short on options at jcp.com. All dressed up, everywhere to go. JCPenney.
Progressive protects more than just your home and car. You could save when you bundle your motorcycles, ATVs, boats, and RVs. Doesn't that sound good? Like the sound of the wind in the trees as your RV sits parked in the forest. Is that the call of the majestic owl? And there's the sound of a tree branch crashing into the roof of your RV. Oof, I guess their nest was in that branch. But you know what does sound good? You're covered with Progressive. So bundle all your vehicles and home in one place and save with the multi-policy discount. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers.
The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
Yo, what up? This is Rocky Asuka Romero of Chaos, and you are listening to Keepin It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the ace of podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the ace of podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out in Barrio the Frogs. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jeremy Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith and Karen Peterson from Post Wrestling. On today's show, we will preview Sakura Genesis and cover all latest news in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Please support our show by subscribing and following the Social Suplex Podcast Network or Keeping It Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice and leaving a rating and review. You can also get all the podcasts over at socialsuplex.com. Check out our Pro Wrestling Tees store, prowrestlingtees.com/socialsuplex. That's where you can get your official Keeping It Strong Style t-shirt. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider making a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and clicking on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. This week's episode is brought to you by the NJPW EXT, the only browser extension for NJPWworld.com. Frequently updated and with features like dark mode, improved translations and layouts, custom and shared plays, synchronizing parties, and much, much more. It takes NJPW World to the next level. You can visit njpwext.us today for details. Karen, Josh, how are you guys doing?
I'm doing well. How are you been?
Good. Tired after this long WrestleMania weekend.
Recovering week, right?
I am utterly exhausted from WrestleMania weekend. And we didn't even go. We weren't even there.
I know. I was talking to Karen before record. I was like, I feel like going to the city, it's a lot easier to keep up with what's going on versus being at home and trying to watch everything head to head and different streams and the time difference.
Yeah, this one was weird. We don't have to break down everything that happened on WrestleMania weekend, but I will tell you this. Most of what I saw on the various independent shows that were taking place, they just felt very inconsequential, very showcasey, but nothing that was really sticking to the kayfabe of any individual companies. Remember back in the day, you'd go and Evolve, WWN, and all these Chikara and all these different groups would be running, and they'd have builds to the matches that were taking place in their shows, and then people would be hyped and they'd go see them and they'd play into the overall storyline. Now you just go to a spring break and you just see some guys wrestle in a great match, but at the end of the day, it doesn't mean anything. It didn't go anywhere. It didn't lead to anything. And it kind of just feels like that's what this has become at this point. Like just a bunch of matches with a bunch of guys that kind of doesn't mean anything unless you're really, really into them. I feel like it's a bigger deal for the people that are there now than it is for those of us watching at home for the most part.
One of the things that I've realized, to build on that, it's been a shift from, the involved storylines to it feels like they're making it more accessible for casual fans who descend upon whatever city WrestleMania is in.
Mm-hmm.
And, they buy that WrestleCon ticket package, or they buy that, streaming package. And they have absolutely no idea who any of these people are. They may have heard a name in passing on social media or whatever. And it's just kind of like, it's just like a big wrestling buffet at this point, or it's just like you can try a little bit of this. You might get 18 Mike Bailey matches, or when it was Orlando, it was like 20 Zack Sabre Jr. matches. I don't know how he got around in Orlando with like a 55-minute drive, but it's just it's evolved into it's kind of more accessible, but also still kind of has like, I don't want to call it a trash indie vibe, but it's like there are things that are like endearing about it not having everything having like an NXT or WWE style build up to a giant payoff.
Yeah. I think speaking of that package thing, I think that has been a noticeable shift for me the last couple of years, where in the past you would see a lot of fans travel amongst the different groups to attend the shows that they wanted to attend. And so they're crossing town, yada, yada. But what I've noticed lately is a lot of the fans that are going to the WrestleCon shows seem to be people that are just buying a package and staying there all day, and kind of like they're just for the experience of being around other people, and they're not like necessarily like, and this isn't everybody, it's kind of a generalization, but it feels like they're not the most hardcore of the indie wrestling fans. And I've noticed that a lot of those people that we personally know and see and have been around, they're kind of all just staying at GCW all day nowadays. And that's like the sort of the hotter like show, package to be part of. Like those shows are a lot more lively, even if they're not on paper as much quality all the time as some of the WrestleCon shows. For whatever reason, last year and this year, these WrestleCon shows, the crowds sucked. They were like very dead in that Globe Theater. And I don't get it, because it's like, that's the home of PWG. There was a lot of great offerings. Yeah, and I guess we'll get into it here in a minute, but the Impact at New Japan show, it just felt dead to me. Like, and that's really unfortunate because the show was great.
Well, Josh, I think you hit the nail on the head. I was there last year in Dallas for Mania weekend, and I went to a lot of the WrestleCon shows, and yeah, it was different from, New Orleans 2018, different from New York 2019. Like,
New Orleans was so good.
Those years were so good.
New Orleans was good.
But yeah, those fans last year for WrestleCon, like I'm sitting at the Super Show, and it just didn't. The vibe was so weird, and like these great like indie guys are coming out, like Mike Bailey and Bandito and all these top guys, and like, it's just not quite getting the crowd reaction you think it would normally get based off of the shows that we went to in the past in New Orleans and New York and Orlando and stuff like that. So yeah, that WrestleCon package, and because now it's like part of like the session ticket thing, like it's definitely a whole different audience than you would typically get in previous years.
Yeah, I definitely think that's the case. I guess one thing I did want to talk about before we jump into things, just recently found out that Bushwhacker Butch has passed away. Very sorry to hear about that. One of, I don't want to say one of my favorite wrestlers, but someone that I think probably affected all of us as little kids watching, the Bushwhackers on WWF TV. But Jeremy, you and I, we were at trivia night, not 3-4 years ago, something like, actually at this point, like maybe 5 or 6 years ago.
I think it was like 2017.
And we got a chance to hang out with Bushwhacker Luke and tell him how much I appreciated his sheep herder matches, and got to tell stories about him and Jack Victory and them against the Fantastics and Crockett Cup. So very sorry to hear about the passing of Bushwhacker Butch.
Yeah, our condolences to his family.
Also, congratulations to Karen. I saw your post. 8 years at the same job, huh?
Yep. Today was my celebration of my anniversary at work, and incidentally, it's also my parents' wedding anniversary. So it's a pretty easy day for me to remember.
Well, congratulations to them and to yourself.
Thank you.
And Karen, we had a question here for you from one of our listeners, Bash. He said he hopes that you're fine and well, and wants to know if you're looking forward to the new Zelda game for the Switch.
Oh gosh, I had like full disclosure, I haven't played a Zelda game since the old school Nintendo, like the very first one. I played the first one and the second one, and I have not played it since. For me, the games just started coming out way too quickly for me to keep up. It's on my wish list of games I want, but I have to file my taxes first and see if it's in the fun budget, or I'll just wait for it to go on sale.
Yeah. All right, let's start talking about some New Japan stuff here. It is first week of April, so we got to do our Wrestler of the Month, Match of the Month for March. So we'll start off here with the Wrestler of the Month. Going to go ahead and award it to the Cold Skull Sonata. Obviously, a big month for him, winning the New Japan Cup finally. Changing his look, joining Just Five Guys, beating Naito, leaving LIJ. Had an awesome match with Taichi in the beginning of the tournament. Really good final match with Dave Finlay. Overall, pretty good tournament for Sonata. There are some other guys in the tournament that probably, from an in-ring match quality, probably had a better month with him. Also, there was some other tag matches that kind of stood out. But overall, this month was really all about Sonata, building him up, leaving LIJ, and getting him ready for this big Sakura Genesis main event.
Yeah, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention a few of the close runners up. Mark Davis was definitely in contention. Hiroki Goto, Kyle Fletcher, a few others. So pretty good month, and congratulations to Sonata. The match of the month, and this was a close one. It was between either this match or the fantastic junior title match between Lio Rush and Hiromu. Ultimately, we decided that this kind of deserved the nod, and we decided to go with Bishamon versus the Mega Aces from the anniversary show. So congratulations to those four men and the fantastic match that we all got to watch and witness.
Yeah, that was just an awesome tag match. If you guys have not seen that, I recommend go back and watch that tag match with the Mega Aces and Bishamon from the anniversary show.
Quick question. It's a little early, obviously, for awards, but for me, the top two that stick out in my immediate memory are this one and the breakup of Suzuki-gun. Between those two, what would you guys give the nod to right now?
For tag match of the year?
Yeah.
Well, Suzuki-gun broke up in December, didn't they?
It's in our grading period.
Okay. I'm just making sure people have different cycles. It's hard because one's exceptionally emotionally charged because Suzuki-gun has been around for so long, but it's kind of like they've done everything that they could have done together, and now it's best that they go their separate ways and see what happens. But given the history that involving Bishamon versus Mega Aces, for me it's neck and neck. I can't pick one or the other because for very different reasons. I love a lot of the people in both of those matches. So I'm like, oh, this has this, but then it's like my scales are just like waffling back and forth right now about it.
That's why I wanted to ask you guys, because I really don't know. So I'm like, I don't know which one of these I like better.
Yeah, I'm glad it's not just me.
If we had a vote today and the ballot was out, I think I would probably go Mega Aces Bishamon 1 and Suzuki-gun breakup 2.
I think I'd go Suzuki-gun breakup 1 just to spite you. So
so then it falls to me? No. I abstain.
All right, let's talk about some of the stuff that went down WrestleMania weekend.
Oh man, so much went down. Are we gonna talk about Cody not finishing the story?
No, not gonna talk about that.
Just let it play out, man.
The story is never over. No, we're gonna talk about New Japan show, co-promoted show with Impact Wrestling that had the Multiverse United, Only the Strong Survive, which aired on Thursday, March 30th, 8 p.m. Pacific time, exclusively on Fight TV.
Did we all see the show? I watched the show. I don't know about you guys.
I wrote a report for Post on it, so yeah, I watched it.
Yes, and I
Nice.
also watched it too.
All right, cool. So far we're on pace.
I don't think we need to give full hole by hole breakdown for these matches and shows. I'll run through the results, then we can kind of give our general thoughts and maybe just kind of anything that stood out from the show. So the pre-show opened up. We had Yu Amora defeating Gabriel Kidd at 7 minutes 52 seconds. Then the pay-per-view opened up with the Impact X Division title scramble match. Trey Miguel successfully defending the title by defeating Clark Connors, Frankie Kazarian, Kevin Knight, Rich Swann, and our good friend Rocky Romero. Then we had Alex Coughlin, Sami Callihan, Fred Rosser, and PCO defeating Eddie Edwards, Joe Hendry, and JR Kratos, and Filthy Tom Lawler. Jeff Cobb defeated Moose in 11 minutes 51 seconds. Then we had a Impact Knockouts World title number one contendership for the women's title four-way match. Deonna Purrazzo defeats Giselle Shaw, Masa Slamovich, and Miyu Yamashita, 9 minutes and 20 seconds. Then we had the Impact World Tag Team title four-way match as the Bullet Club team of Ace Austin and Chris Bay defeated Aussie Open, Motor City Machine Guns, and the TMDK team of Bad Dude Tito and Shane Hayes. Then we had Kushida defeating Leo Rush, 12 minutes 42 seconds. Then the semi-main event was for the strong openweight title. Kenta defeated Suzuki, 15 minutes and 27 seconds to keep the strong title. And then the big main event was the Ace of the Universe, Hiroshi Tanahashi defeating Speedball Mike Bailey, 15 minutes and 16 seconds. So we'll start with Karen. What was your overall thoughts, opinions about this Multiverse show?
So watching Impact Sacrifice the week before, I was sweating because this card was very much card subject to change. First, Ospreay versus Speedball got canceled because Ospreay had to drop out of the New Japan Cup. So of course Tanahashi steps in. Great. Literally the week before at Impact Sacrifice, they had announced that Mickie James can't participate. She's not medically cleared. So they have to, move that match to their next pay-per-view, which is Rebellion 2 weeks from now. And that they're going to keep the four-way, but make it a number one contenders match. So whoever wins that match also goes to Rebellion. And if Mickey's clear, she goes into that match and make it a three-way. If not, Mickey surrenders the title to whoever wins the singles match. And then on top of that, Kushida's Impact World Championship match got thrown out the window because Josh Alexander tore his tricep. So it was one of those things, like, the more changes that happened, I was cautiously optimistic, but also very concerned. Glad they took care of the people that had injuries. Glad they were able to make it up in different ways. But for me, like, talking about low stakes, no stakes, Impact with shows with like stakes and impacts. No pun or pun intended. I don't know. This was a great introduction to New Japan and to Impact Wrestling for people that may not watch either, or watches one but may not necessarily watch the other. So like we were talking about, it's a wrestling buffet. It's a little bit of everything for everyone. I enjoyed the show. I had a great time with it. What stood out to me the most was the Kushida versus Leo Rush was probably my match of the night, followed very closely by the tag team four-way.
That's interesting. I have to agree with you. I thought Leo Rush versus Kushida was my match of the night as well. And going into the show, I was hearing mostly praise being hoisted on the main event between Tanahashi and Mike Bailey, which I did think was good, no doubt. But my expectations were a little bit higher going into the show just because of the reputation it had already garnered before I even watched the event. And I was most impressed with Leo Rush and Kushida. A couple things that I noticed, and I hate to be nitpicky, but I do think that there were some issues here. First thing being, I thought this crowd was horrendous. I thought the show overall was very, very good, but the reactions from the crowd, and it almost feels like a curse from Impact. It's like you can take, I don't know. I was going to make a joke about taking the crowd out of Impact and putting the Impact in the crowd, but it didn't make sense. But it doesn't matter whether they're in, Tampa or Orlando or whatever part of Florida that they're in, or you go all the way to the other side of the country, the same general feel and vibe of a indifferent crowd kind of still remains to be the same. And I'm not sure why that is, what the deal is. Because I sort of expected more on a WrestleMania weekend where everyone's kind of a flying crowd and, you've got a lot of New Japan representation. So I felt like the hardcores would be there, and it just didn't come through. Couple things that also I noticed with the show is the lighting and the presentation of the Globe Theater doesn't did not come across the way it looked like. For instance, I saw like photos like from photographers, and it's a beautiful venue, like, and it looks
stunning.
incredible. Yeah. And every time I watch PWG in there, it looks great. For whatever reason, it was just really dimmed and you couldn't see much of what was going on there. And they might as well not been in the Globe Theater. It didn't look or sound or feel like it. And they continued to have persistent like technology issues during this show. Not quite as bad as like what New Japan has experienced with Fight, but it's like in the middle of matches, I can hear people in the crowd having personal conversations coming through the headrests, and I'm like, I don't want to know about what's going on with these people and which wrestlers' autographs they did or didn't get. Like, why is that coming through?
Oh, wow, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, it was
like
really...
the commentary sitting in the dark. Like they would cut to commentary for comments, and there was like there was no they're like on the stage, but like there's no front lighting. I'm like, why are they like in the closet somewhere? Why aren't they like if you're gonna have like cuts to commentary, you need to light commentary.
Right.
They can't be backlit. It was not a very good visual.
Yeah, there's also points where you could like hear the production guy like talking in the headsets too. Like,
you could hear them giving them instructions and stuff, which was weird. And then there was also like video delays and snafus and audio not syncing up. So some of that, but at the end of the day, you could the wrestling presentation was still there. You could see what they were doing. I thought the guys and the girls that wrestled this evening really went out there to put on an incredible show, but the crowd just wasn't receptive to it. Like, for instance, the X Division Scramble match, I thought that harkened so much so to like the old school WWN opener Scramble matches that people always rave about on WrestleMania weekend. And they did a lot of the same stuff for instance, if you compare this to like, say, the 5-way at NXT that got rave reviews, which I thought was severely overhyped. I thought this match was much more fluid, much faster paced, much more action packed, but it got killed on Cage Match. I don't know what the deal is with that. The crowd was non-reactive, and I feel like there's a little bit of a been there, done that sort of attitude from the crowd. It's like we're seeing the same stuff we've seen a million times, and even though the show was good, almost everything that was here, they did exactly what you would have expected to. You could like literally you could have like gone to ChatGPT and asked them to like write out the outcome of the matches, and it would have basically been what we saw here.
I've got a question. Was it me, or did the ringside look very is it a PWG thing? The ringside area looked really, really small. Like it didn't look like there was much clearance from the railing in the first row to the ringside. Like, it looked very compact. So when people were diving out of the ring or doing, topes or flipping, I'm just like, you're gonna end in the third row and you're gonna hit the balcony. What are you doing? Like, is it that small of a venue, or is it just they just packed a lot of chairs in there?
I think they pack a lot of chairs just because that's sort of the vibe. PWG usually does it that way, and I think
they don't have any railings at PWG, right? It's usually just people standing. Like,
I think in the Globe they do.
Okay. It just looked really cramped compared to other previous venues that have run WrestleCon and stuff like that. It just looked really claustrophobic at times.
The other thing too is like a lot of the matches, to me, even though there were real stakes and there were real stories, they still just felt very house showcasey sort of vibe. The only matches to me that really had a gravity to them at all were like the final few matches, like the one that we were talking about with Lio Rush and Kushida. That actually felt like it had a rhyme and a reason to why it was happening, and it was worked with a bit more seriousness. Same thing with Kenta and Suzuki. Even though I didn't love the match, it still had more of a feeling like this is a different level than what we were seeing when, like, the tag match was great, but it's like they're doing spots where everyone's giving each other headlocks, and it's like WWN Super Show sort of fodder. It's the same things that you see every WrestleMania weekend. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, I pretty much agree with you, Josh. Overall, I thought from an in-ring perspective, very good show. But, yeah, like you mentioned, a lot of kind of production issues and snafus throughout the show. Video packages wouldn't play, or they would kind of cut out. But yeah, the wrestling was pretty good. I really enjoyed Kushida and Lio Rush, and I thought it was kind of an added element of a story with Lio just facing Hiromu, which is one of Kushida's great rivals, and they brought that up in commentary. So, and Leo's questing for that junior title, because Kushida's such a great junior champion. So that kind of felt like the winner of that could be like next in line potentially for Hiromu after the Robbie Eagles match. The tag team match was a lot of fun, but again, they were doing some cool stuff and not a ton of crowd reaction. And plus, the crowd wasn't really mic'd up that great either. So even if they were reacting, we probably wouldn't have heard them all that well anyway.
Does anybody know what happened between this show with Tanahashi's teeth and then the Ring of Honor show? Because he had teeth during the Mike Bailey match, and then the next day he didn't have teeth again. And I'm like, what's happening here?
So, as you know, his front 4 teeth are all false. Okada
Right.
kicked them out years ago. And when he, got called out by Okada for their match, he has a temporary bridge, and it had fallen out. And last week before he came over to the States, he recorded his podcast and he says, like, I have an appointment with my dentist after I get back from the United States. I just need these teeth to stay in until I get back from the United States. And then he decided to bite into an apple.
Oh.
And the apple took his teeth out.
Okay.
So
I was like, did Speedball kick him in
until
the
he
head?
gets his teeth fixed, it's like Tanahashi needs to be on soft foods only, and like not like if it has anything stronger than a piece of paper, just don't. So yeah, Tanahashi's 0-2 against the apple and other hard foods.
One last thing I do want to say. Well, actually, 2 things. I hated the finish of the Kenta Suzuki match where Kenta gave him a low blow. And I got to tell you, not really feeling the Kenta strong title reign at all. In fact, not really feeling the strong title period at this point without there being a New Japan Strong week in and week out. Just feels pointless to me at this point. But besides that, this show just in general was fun. But I'm starting to get the feeling most of the time when it comes to I love that New Japan's doing cross promotion with different groups and everything, but almost every single cross promotional show, except for maybe last year's Forbidden Door, and even that had some issues, most of the time they just feel kind of pointless in their execution. Like they sort of just feel like non-canon excursion shows. Like they're almost just basically hyped up produce shows that really have no purpose other than just making money. Mm-hmm. And I always get left feeling disappointed by the outcomes. Like the on paper they look great, but in execution I'm always just like, I don't know. I'd rather just watch New Japan. Like I don't need this really if it's not going to have any stakes or have any real purpose beyond just being a fun show. You know what I mean?
I think the other hard part is that when they took away the taping part of New Japan Strong, it kind of, like you said, it's like you can have the pay-per-view, but now you have no build up to any of the pay-per-views here in the States. It's either it's done on social media or it's done in Japan and then brought over here, or it's just like, what local wrestlers can we bring in for this great show? And
right.
Yeah.
But and then the other problem is, and this is a problem, and I say this with love because I want to believe that New Japan has our best interests at heart. When this was originally launched, it was supposed to be we're not going to run shows concurrent with the international shows. So, fans can have the best of both worlds. And it's been very rare where they don't have a show running in Japan and a show running at internationally at the same time. So you don't get the whole roster anymore. Mm-hmm. Like the pre-pandemic era, they would send everybody and their mother. You'd get all your young lions. You'd have the entire rings, like all the ring announcers and referees. And now it's like we get like a referee that's like on excursion.
Yeah.
A ring out announcer that's like a local guy that, does a great job. But like at WrestleCon, they barely used him. And he's bilingual. So I don't know why they didn't just use him for just the entire show. So it's one of those things where I'm just like, I feel like there's a bit of a backpedal, and New Japan Strong doesn't feel as special as it used to.
Right. I mean, again, we're talking back previous WrestleMania weekends. Like New Japan Pro Wrestling was a big deal and a big part of those weekends. Like I remember, like New Orleans 2018, like it was a big deal that like Suzuki and Ishii and Tanahashi were a part of WrestleCon. You could meet them, get their autograph, and then they were, a part of the Super Show. They were part of Super Card of Honor. And it
They were
felt
on Rev
like,
Pro. Like they had all these shows.
Yeah, Ishii and Sabre at Rev Pro. Like, it felt like a really big deal. And then obviously 2019, you had Madison Square Garden G1 Supercard. Like, that was a huge deal. Like, New Japan in the Garden, in WWE's backyard, on their weekend, having this sold out show. You had IWGP title match. Jay White and Tanahashi.
There was a Never match. There was an IWGP tag match. Yeah. There's all kinds of stuff going on.
Yeah, it's actually Jay White and Okada and Tanahashi and Sabre for the Rev Pro. Like, there was so many great stuff on that show, and it just felt, again, like big New Japan weekend. All these New Japan fans were in town. New Japan felt like a really big deal, and also I know a pandemic happened, but since then, like, they just been really kind of having a hard time really kind of getting back to what they were in America, and the AEW stuff, that has helped. But even in that situation, they still feel like the, little bro to AEW when they're doing these cross promotions and Forbidden Door situations.
Yeah. Well, I guess we should jump into some of the other Mania ongoings. I'll kind of just run through it. So Bloodsport ran on March 30th. That's Bloodsport 9. And we had a lot of New Japan representation. Jeff Cobb defeated Calder McCall, 6 minutes and 4 seconds. Kota Ibushi defeated Mike Bailey, 6 minutes, 54 seconds. Bad Dude Tito defeated Yuya Uemura, 5 minutes and 8 seconds. Harry Smith defeated JR Kratos, 10 minutes and 59. Johnny Bloodsport defeated Royce Isaacs. John Moxley defeated Alex Coughlin. And then in the main event, Timothy Thatcher defeated Josh Barnett. We did have a question here from ethnic_dystopian. They said, did you see Bloodsport 9? And if so, how do you think the NJPW related talent performed?
Karen, did you see Bloodsport?
Of course I did. That was my first Mania show of this year, was watching Bloodsport, making a charcuterie plate and pouring some wine and enjoying it. I always enjoy Bloodsport because in recent years, there's always been one or two New Japan adjacent or New Japan strong or New Japan guys on these shows. And it's kind of like one of those, since we haven't had Rev Pro in the United States the past few years, Bloodsport's been kind of like the surrogate, where they've been able to put them on a slightly different brand of wrestling. I personally enjoyed it. I think the New Japan guys that were on it, some of them surprised me. I loved seeing different sides of everyone. I enjoyed seeing, Alex Coughlin wrestle someone that isn't JR Kratos for the 18th time. Loved seeing Uemura in there with Bad Dude Tito. Oh, can't get enough of Jeff Cobb, but and of course I love me some Timothy Thatcher. I know he's a Noah guy, but it was great to see him in. If I think of Bloodsport, Thatcher's one of the first names that has always popped up for me. So I really enjoyed the show.
I think him and Noah are done.
Oh, they're finished?
I think so.
Bummer. I liked him in Sugi Uragoon, but that's all right.
Yeah, enjoyed the show. Wasn't my favorite Bloodsport of all time. But overall it was a good quality. Obviously Kota is no longer with us, but seeing him make his return and have what I thought was the standout match of one of the standout matches of the evening with Mike Bailey at just under 7 minutes, they really went balls to the wall and had a really fun spectacle showcase in a shoot style sort of environment. Really loved the Moxley and Alex Coughlin match. I thought Alex Coughlin had an incredible showing for himself, and I think John Moxley continues. It's so bizarre because he's a guy who, in my estimation, is one of the least proficient quote unquote shooters of anybody that's on these shows, but he gets what should make these shows like entertaining more so than a lot of the shoot style guys, or I guess self-styled shoot style guys. And his matches just always stand out, and they're always pretty much the highlight of the event. And this did not disappoint whatsoever. I thought that was really, really, really blow away, and everybody else did really great. I think even though I didn't love the Royce Isaacs match with Johnny Bloodsport, I thought Isaacs looked really good. I thought Cobb looked great. Yeah, it was good. It was and a really easy watch. I mean, the whole thing, there's so many matches and it clocks in under 2 hours. I mean, it's a no-brainer. There's nothing that's, aside from the main event, nothing went over 10 minutes. So super short event.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Bloodsport 9. It also was the first show that I watched during WrestleMania weekend. And yeah, overall, really good show. Bloodsport's always definitely one of the more unique and kind of standout shows every WrestleMania weekend. And for me, like you said, Josh, it was a easy watch, but I do think there is one too many matches, and not because the show is long. And we talked about this off air, Josh. I just feel like there are some people on the show that are not fully great at the Bloodsport style. And so you have a lot of guys doing some of the similar spots because they're doing the few like shoot style moves that they know how to do. So you end up with a ton of guys doing a triangle choke spot, armbar spot, like the powerbomb out the triangle spot, which it's all fine. But if you're watching like 10 matches of that, like all happening back to back, like you got to mix it up. But overall, really fun show. Like you mentioned, Kota Ibushi, Speedball Mike Bailey, really fun matchup. Glad to see Kota Ibushi back. He's kind of down to cruiserweight classic size right now because he hasn't been able to lift weights due to the shoulder injury, but he still looked really good. Coughlin looked great in there. Jon Moxley, I thought that was a great star making performance for him and got him some respect for the weekend. And a little handshake with Moxley after the match. Who knows? Maybe we'll see some Blackpool Combat Club crossover versus LA Dojo. We kind of saw some of that happening with Ring of Honor. So maybe that will kind of spill over that with that storyline of Mox and Coughlin. And yeah, the main event, Thatcher and Barnett, was really, really good. And it felt like a really big deal considering, Josh Barnett is like the namesake for the show. He hadn't been defeated in the history of the show. And so for Thatcher to get that big submission victory, it felt like a really big deal.
Yeah, he's rarely ever even lost in pro wrestling, period. So getting a clean job over him, especially in this sort of environment, is a really big deal. We talk about this off the air, and I try to find the most concise way to kind of explain it. So like in the 90s, when shoot style was at its, zenith, essentially, you had UWFI, Rings, and PWFG as like the primary groups running, and they all had a different spin on what shoot style should be. But the thing that unified all of them was that they were comprised of pro wrestlers who weren't pro wrestlers first and foremost. They were all formally trained in martial arts. And yeah, we didn't know what mixed martial arts would fully look like at that point in time, but they did a really compelling job of presenting shoot style wrestling in a way to where it really looked real and you believed it was real. And if you go back and you watch that stuff, if you have a discerning eye, like you can tell it's not real, but it's a far cry from pro wrestling. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
These guys, even the ones who are very trained in different martial arts, like for instance, catch wrestling great Harry Smith, incredible wrestler and an incredible fighter, but he doesn't quite understand how to meld the two together to like create a really compelling quasi MMA product. And in fact, I would say almost none of these guys do, except maybe Josh Barnett. So what that basically leaves you with, because none of these guys are doing shoot style wrestlings every single day, training it in the gym, and that's their whole life, none of them are proficient at it. So at that point, instead of trying to redo UWFI, they need to basically be working a real psychological pro wrestling match in the style of MMA, which is, it sounds similar to what I was just saying, but there is a differentiation. The guys who know how to do this, in my opinion, are Mox, Filthy Tom Lawler, Simon Grimm. These are guys who understand easily how to take the stylings of an MMA, fight and turn it into a pro wrestling match. A lot of the rest of the guys on these shows just don't know how to do that. They don't understand how to tell a compelling pro wrestling story within the confines of the rule set. And that's my biggest gripe with it. There's a lot of guys that, I don't know. I just don't think that they're putting that much thought or effort into the show. They're just showing up day of, figuring out a couple things they're going to do. They get their time, and then they just kind of try to go out there and roll. And, I don't know. I feel like if this was a showcase show, I'd probably do more. I thought Kota Ibushi and Speedball, they did a good job of what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I did love Yumura doing a tope without the ropes.
That was hilarious.
In his match.
He did a lope.
Yeah.
A couple other things, and I'll just run through them. WrestleCon Super Show was on the 30th. Blake Christian defeated Michael Oku. We had a tag team match with Special Enforcer Ken Shamrock. Brian Keith and Kenta defeated Christopher Daniels and Tom Lawler. Ultimo Dragon defeated Negro Casas. The United Empire trio of Jeff Cobb and Aussie Open defeated Time Machine. Later that same evening at For the Culture, Myron Reed defeated Kevin Knight and Man Like DeReese. And then the next day was Ring of Honor Supercard of Honor, which is probably the biggest show of the weekend outside of WrestleMania. Jeff Cobb defeated Tracy Williams on the undercard. Hiroshi Tanahashi defeated Daniel Garcia. There was a Ring of Honor World Tag Team title Reach for the Sky ladder match, and the Lucha Brothers defeated Top Flight, The Kingdom, Aussie Open, and La Faction and Gobernable, as well as the Ring of Honor Pure title changed hands as Katsuyori Shibata defeated Wheeler Yuta. We did have a couple questions about this. Rambo and Slam Pig said, did you guys see Shibata's win for Supercard of Honor? How did it feel to see the wrestler holding gold again? Does it still seem strange that he's working more for Tony Khan than NJPW? And Bash said, what were your favorite matches with NJPW talent this Mania weekend?
Karen, I'll let you go first.
I don't think I've ever seen, because I was late to the Katsuyori Shibata train, so I've never seen him win a title in real time. I started in 2017 just after he had gotten injured and wasn't around anymore. So it was very emotional for me. And I am a huge fan of the Pure title. I know some people think it's like watching paint dry, but I enjoy it. I like the rule set. I feel like if New Japan right now doesn't have a place to showcase Shibata, why not let him moonlight somewhere else? Mm-hmm. And if AEW / Ring of Honor wants to give that honor to him and they have the space to showcase him in a safe, controlled environment with medical attention readily available in the event that something happens, not that I want it to, knock on wood, then yeah, sure, fine, whatever. As long as he's living his best life and having a good time and doing it safely, sure.
My thing, though, is it's Shibata. There should be room to highlight him in New Japan, especially having this miraculous comeback, this life-threatening injury, and being able to just walk and breathe as a miracle. And now he's back in the ring wrestling again. So it does seem kind of weird that they wouldn't capitalize on that. Somebody who's so popular in Japan, like you would think that there'd be some kind of even a story of him maybe trying to challenge Okada again, like something to do with him there. But I am glad that he is wrestling again and that he's being utilized somewhere. I think the Pure style of matchup works great for him, and something that he could probably, bring some attention on. Like you, Karen, I do enjoy Pure wrestling also, but I just think it has to be the right guys. It's kind of like Bloodsport, where if you don't have the guys who know how to work the Pure style, it doesn't always work out well. Like, when you throw in like Bryan Danielson and Nigel McGuinness, Nigel McGuinness was on commentary for this show back with Ring of Honor, guys like that really knew how to work the Pure style, get the most out of the rope breaks, and really made it exciting. But I thought this match with Wheeler Yuta was really good. I mean, essentially, it was just it was kind of a glorified squash. Shibata was in control of most of the matchup. Yuta got a little bit of a comeback, but then Shibata was able to kind of put him away.
Yeah, I probably lean a little bit closer to your feelings and sentiments about it, Jeremy. I just I'm all for Shibata working in the States if he wants to, and there's other companies that are willing to utilize his talents. That's fine. But at this point, if he's going to be having full-fledged matches, to me, it felt like a waste for his very first match to be on short notice on a Friday night for Rampage against Orange Cassidy in a loss. And that's his first true real match back with like unlimited moves. And we didn't know about it. And it probably honestly should have been something that they capitalized off of and marketed, and New Japan profited in some way. And I'm sure that they have some sort of arrangement with AEW, but it just feels strange to me that he's almost at this point going to have more matches outside of New Japan since he returned than in New Japan. And I don't know what the disconnect is, why they're not using him, but he is re-signed and they are letting him work in other places. Even the most recent one, like in December, he was in Japan. He worked a showcase match with Filthy. Is there no way to get him on the Dome show at all? Like that's not something that would draw fans. I don't know.
It kind of gives me the feeling like how WWE handled the Bryan Danielson thing, where he was able to get cleared, but they weren't comfortable.
Right.
Because they, especially after he had gone off book in his Narita match and decided it's a full-fledged match when that wasn't what was previously discussed. It's the, maybe they're playing it a little too safe. Maybe they're just trying to see how he has a couple of matches abroad before, throwing him onto a Dominion or throwing him into, would I love to see him go against Zack Sabre Jr. for that TV title? Yeah, sure. But I feel like they're playing it safe for a reason right now. So maybe they're just letting him get back into a rhythm before they make a big move, like a bigger show or a program in Japan.
I mean, at the same time, it is double-edged. He wants to compete. He feels he's capable of still going out there and competing, and he's doing that, and that's his dream. So you can't really fault the guy for it. So I'm
not faulting him for it, but I feel like
I don't mean you specifically. I just mean
okay.
Like a general term. But I'm not personally that invested in it. I mean, it was really cool to see him win the title. I thought the match with Wheeler Yuta was really great. But I'm not that invested in it personally because I want to see him work in Japan against New Japan talent. And I'm not saying it needs to be Head Drop City, but I just don't get why we can't get him working over here. I just don't have that much investment to see him watch him wrestle Orange Cassidy or Wheeler Yuta. If you want to line him up and put him in there with Bryan Danielson, go ahead. A dream matches, I'm all for that. But that's where I see Shibata. To me, he's not an upper mid-card killer. He's a main eventer, and I want to see him wrestle guys like that. That's just how I feel.
Yeah, they did tease a Blackpool Combat Club maybe against Shibata and Eddie Kingston at the end of the show, and Wheeler Yuta did beat like Clark Connors and I think maybe Coughlin on the build up to this matchup. So it seems like there might be like this LA Dojo Blackpool Combat Club kind of crossover that we'll probably see play out on ROH TV, which could be cool. But I agree with you, Josh. I do think he should be facing the Bryan Danielsons, the Jon Moxleys, the really tippy top, Kenny Omega, the really top guys in AEW right now.
One thing worth noting before we move on, during the media call before the show, and I didn't listen to it, I heard the second hand, but Tony Khan had confirmed that had Will Ospreay not been injured, he would have been on the show, and the match was going to be him versus Konosuke Takeshita. So we missed out on a Will Ospreay versus Takeshita match, which probably would have been the match of the weekend. I'm just guessing.
Yeah, that would have been absolutely incredible.
I don't know. Him versus Speedball could have also been another one.
That's true.
We missed out on a lot of Ospreay.
I mean, I guess it's not really what we covered, but I heard that the Yuki Ueno match against Takeshita at the DDT show was like really, really fantastic. And I didn't hear too many people talk about it outside of like the hardcores.
So Bash also asked about, our favorite New Japan match with Mania, New Japan talent Mania weekend match.
I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. What were your guys' favorites?
I still lean towards Kushida versus Leo Rush. That would probably be my top pick. A lot of the other matches, they were fun. They were fun, and they were great showcase matches, but I still enjoyed that non-title match more than Shibata versus Wheeler Yuta.
For me, it would either be that or Alex Coughlin against Jon Moxley at Bloodsport. Those would probably be
that was a good one picks.
Too. Yeah, I think Coughlin versus Mox is my top pick. It's only 6 minutes and 31 seconds, but it was awesome.
Started doing the headbutts, like it got awesome at the end.
Yeah. All right. So
never mind. We can move on.
What are you gonna say?
I just like the match. I was gonna talk about other spots I like, but it's fine.
How about I make that the recommended match, the excursion match, and you can talk about it next week.
No, that's all right. We already covered it. It's done.
Okay. All right, well, let's move on now to what's going on in Japan. We got Sakura Genesis coming up. We had 2 Road 2 shows, one on April 2nd, the other one on today, April 3rd, both from Corkin Hall. We'll run through these results right here and kind of talk about some of the story elements that happen on these shows and moving forward into the big Sakura Genesis show. So the April 2nd show opened up with Togi Makabe and Tomioka Hanma defeating Oscar Lubei and Yuto Nakashima. We had Bushi, Hiromu Takahashi, and Tetsuya Naito defeating El Phantasmo, Gedo, and Taiji Shimori. The House of Torture took on Strong Style and Rei Oiwa, which was a double count out. And because of that double count out, that led to Strong Style challenging House of Torture to a no count out match for the following night. Then we had the United Empire team of Great Okan, Kyle Fletcher, and Mark Davis defeating Goto, Toriano, and Yoshihashi. Then TMDK, Kosei Vegeta, Robbie Eagles, and Zack Sabre Jr. defeating Oleg Bolton in his debut match. He was teaming with Ryusuke Taguchi and Shota Umino. And with some questions here, first from MJ Does PR is that Bolton boy has quite the frame on him, doesn't he? What do you think a chop from that guy feels like?
I guess I'll start. So in full disclosure, here's what happened. Earlier today, I started to watch this show on like 2x speed, and I was like, oh, there's no English. That's great. That's not going to help me. And I was, following it along, and then I got literally to this match, and I was like, oh, wait. It's the first match with Robbie back in TMDK. It's Oleg Bolton's first match. I need to pay attention. And I was like, I am so wiped out from WrestleMania weekend. I cannot watch this. Like, I don't have the mental capacity to give this the attention it deserves. So I was like, I'm just going to shut this off. So I have not seen anything up to this match, but I do plan on getting to it. But I will tell you this, a chop from that guy, it can't be nice because I've taken chops and they are literally my least favorite part of pro wrestling, period. Like they fucking suck so bad. I hate them. And let's say he gives it to you the right way, it's going to hurt so bad. And if he gives it to you the wrong way, it's going to hurt even worse. And a guy his size, there's no way, his frame, his muscular frame, like there's no way that doesn't feel like just a million like paper cuts going through your chest. It's gotta suck so bad.
Yeah, that's like, Gunther level, like chop power there, like hits you and you see the pictures he used to have on those shirts where like he'd slap somebody, like you just see their chest kind of like waving with the force of his chop. He also asked, if you were coaching him, what film study would you recommend?
Brock Lesnar. I'd make him watch Brock Lesnar, period. I don't even know if I could think of anyone else right off the top of my head. Yeah,
make him watch Walter.
Yeah, make him watch. Oh my God. If he was just like literally like a composite of the best aspects of Walter and the best aspects of Brock Lesnar.
Dear God.
Throw in a little bit of Ishii.
Put the belt on them.
Put all the belts on him.
Give him
the tag belts, the trios, all of them.
Give him that hardcore Holly. Give him the belt and beat everybody. But yeah, absolutely agree. Yeah, Brock would be my number one. Yeah, watch all kinds of Brock Lesnar, just especially that 0-2 run when he was just like crushing dudes. Like, yeah. Then he says, can Karen comment on Oleg's Japanese and whether she thinks this will get him out of the black trunks any faster?
So I wasn't able to watch either of the shows in full detail either, even at 2.2 or 2.0 speed. But I did, when I saw that question, I went and watched his backstage promo. I don't know how long he's been living in Japan, but his Japanese, for somebody who's probably been there only a few years, is fairly easy to listen to and does make a lot of sense. I feel like he either is in a great homestay, or he's found himself a Japanese girlfriend, or a Japanese family's adopted him, or he's living with Nagata. I don't know. But compared to other foreign talents that have gone over there multiple times or live over there for an extended period of time, his command of Japanese is very good. I was like, man, maybe my Japanese is like, I was getting jealous listening to him, like how confident he was speaking. Cause that's the other thing. It's not his first language. So I give him all the gold stars, like 28 stars. He did amazing.
He's been training in Japan since the early 2010s.
Okay. Yeah. So he's been there for close to at least 10 years. Yeah. He's actually probably lived there longer than I have then.
And he attended Yamanashi University, and he was considered one of their strongest foreign students before he joined Team Bushiroad. So it's not like a recent thing for him at all.
Yeah, and Yamanashi isn't exactly the it's not a metropolitan area like your Tokyos or your Osakas, where there's plenty of foreigners and foreign support. So he basically did like an immersion homestay or study abroad program. So that's awesome for him. I love that for him.
Yeah, I definitely think that will help him in his progress in New Japan. That might help speed things up. He's speaking the language. He can communicate with the audience, the fan base. Then just with his size and power, like he has a lot of tools that could help him get over very quickly.
I just hope they don't take that away from him, because usually should he turn heel, the default setting to the heels is they only speak English or insert your native mother tongue here. And his Japanese is actually really good. So I would hate for them to take that away from him. It could make him stand out and be a different foreign wrestler for a change.
I literally thought that they were going to have him continue to wear the singlet and have this delineation between Noge trained dojo wrestlers and team like Bushiroad,
Yuji Nagata's project.
and have that differentiation, but apparently not. They had him still come out in the traditional black trunks. But I don't know much about Japanese, but he sounded fluent to me.
It was very fluid and very confident, which is great to hear.
Another question here from Adam on Twitter says, Oleg Boltin looked like $1 million on Sunday. How long do you think he has before he's challenging for titles? Do you think they'll fast track an excursion for him? If so, where do you think he'd fit best?
I don't know. That's a really interesting question. It's pretty rare that, foreign talents come in and go through the dojo system and then also have an excursion. I mean, they did do that obviously for like Jay White, and that was like an exception to the rule, but they didn't really do it for like Dave Finlay. They didn't do it for Juice. And, there's a few other guys I can probably think of. Like, I don't think Finn Balor, I don't think he really went on excursion or anything like that when he came in. Or did he even go through the dojo system? I think he did.
I think he did. Yeah.
Carl Anderson never went abroad. So I don't know. It's kind of interesting in that way.
Going to Japan is usually their excursions.
That's their excursion, yeah.
But yeah, no, I don't know if they would fast track him to an excursion. I mean, they may, if they're gonna like start, fast pacing him on anything. Maybe they would make him either go to New Japan Strong or come on to some of the international shows. But that again, that also depends on his visa status, like how not being a Japanese citizen, or I don't know what his citizenship is, or what have you. If they were to send him on an excursion, if he could easily go to the UK and fit in great there, he could fit in the United States scene. I don't know if they would send him to Mexico.
I don't.
Or New Zealand, maybe. I don't know.
As an older guy who's already
like,
I don't know exactly.
Sorry,
I can look it up.
A stat sheet.
He's born in 93, so he's 30.
Okay.
And when I say, I don't mean old, I just mean older in terms of his athletic prime.
Compared to the rest of the young lions.
He's wrestled around the world. He's from Kazakhstan. He's got life experience. He's world traveled. I don't think this is a person that needs to go learn how to do lucha libre or work holds in Great Britain. If you want my honest opinion, if they're ready to put him on a quote unquote excursion, maybe if you want to give him to Shibata, that would probably be great. But what I would do, just my personal opinion, I would just take him out of the Lion system entirely when you're ready and just send him around Japan. Send him to like all the other systems that are around and put him in tag matches and protect him. Let it be known that he is like a graduate and have him work untelevised, house show matches and work tag matches and work with legends and top talent from, veterans from around the country. And then when you're ready to like bring him back and give him the big push.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think he needs, a big long trip to Mexico or the UK or even the US. I don't really think that any of that's really going to benefit him at the stage that he's at. I think, you keep him in that dojo system. You keep him working with the guys that he's working with right now. And then, you pull a challenge series out, give him like a trial challenge series, and then graduate him and just have him go on from there. So after that, we had just 5 guys, Doki, Sanada, Taichi, Taka, and Kanemaru. They defeated the Chaos team of Okada, Ishii, Master Wato, and Tiger Mask. And just 5 guys, they had new music, and they had a new entrance. They actually came through the crowd. So it's probably going to be a little bit of issue with them and Shota Umino, because, that was Umino's special thing. But yeah, they came out of the crowd and did their little thumb hand signal, thumbs in. Kissing thumbs.
It's cute, but like men in their late 30s, early 40s don't really shit. I don't know. It's silly.
Yeah. Kanemaru had new gear, new tights, new ring jacket. He looked really good, and he ended up getting the win for his team here in this matchup by pinning Master Wato. And also there was a ton of interactions between Sanada and Okada, Sanada leaving Okada lying towards the end of the match there. So Sanada with a little bit of momentum going into the title match. And then the main event of the show was for the KOPW Provisional 2023 title. It was the Ultimate Triad match. So that was the match stipulation where you had to get a pinfall, submission, and 10-count knockout in order to defeat your opponent. And the Dragon, Shingo Takagi, retained his provisional KOPW title, defeating Aaron Henare 38 minutes and 15 seconds. Karen, what did you think about this match?
I started watching it and then I looked at the show notes. I was like, 38 minutes? I love Shingo. I love Henare. I could not do 38 minutes with a WrestleMania hangover. So I'll go back and watch it. But yeah, it sounded like a good time. I just didn't have 40 minutes to give rapt attention to it.
I haven't watched this yet. Obviously, it's 38 minutes. And it was one of my fears when they said that the match, you had to win it by knocking your opponent out and pinning them and submitting them. I'm like, that sounds like a recipe for a really, really long match. Or you're going to have to do a bunch of like chicanery to like do a bunch of like Survivor Series style like finishes very in quick succession to get a short match. And it's going to be a little bit unbelievable if they go that way. Obviously, I'm a little unspoiled here. I do know that Shingo won and it went almost 40 minutes, but I will say 45 votes on Cage Match, 9.11. Sounds like they might have knocked it out of the park. I don't know. Jeremy, did you see this match?
Yeah, I watched the match. And so like you guys, I was watching like the undercard stuff, faster pace. And then I got to Shingo and Aaron Henare, and I was letting it go. But then I went on Cage Match and saw, like, oh, this match has a 9 rating. Oh, like I need to like rewind. I need to like actually like pay attention to this match and watch it. And yeah, I thought the match was awesome, and the Cork and Hall crowd helped, and it was a ton of energy behind the matchup. And it's like we talked about last week when Shingo's in these wrestling style stipulation matchups, he does great, and it was very similar to the Taichi last man standing type of matchup they did a few months ago. And I thought Aaron Henare looked really great. I thought it was a breakout singles match for him. They worked the match great. Henare was working over Shingo's midsection majority of the matchup there, and he was able to get the Ultima submission on Shingo to get his first submission there, and then Shingo got that ground cobra to get his submission. And then he later on did a backslide to get his pinfall. Henare did the Streets of Rage to get his pinfall. And then towards the end, Shingo was able to get the 10-count knockout on Aaron Henare. But they brawled all throughout Cork and Hall. Hanare bashing Shingo's head against the East sign up in the crowd. It's like Hanare looked like the man. Like he hung in there with Shingo. Shingo killed it. It's definitely like a great match to check out.
So basically, Hanare's had the 2 best matches of his career in short order against Shingo.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I saw some reviews that were I saw one review that was like, this went long for the sake of going long and is overhyped. And then I saw someone call it a match of the year contender. So there's a wide variety of opinions on this. I do want to check it out. I plan to probably tomorrow, but I did see post-match that Shingo was bringing up that there are a lot of opponents on his radar for the upcoming Forbidden Door. And he brought up Bryan Danielson. He brought up Claudio Castagnoli. He brought up guys from Impact as well. And, you know, he pretty much was like, yeah, there's a lot of champions out there, guys that I'd like to fight. So, you know, KOPW wants to prove that his blue belt's not just a paper title.
It's a Velcro title.
I hate the Velcro belts so much.
Same.
But I like this belt better than the cookie cutter strong belt, at least.
Yeah. They have a question here from TJG89. I'm fairly new to actively following NJPW. I find myself drawn to Shingo, but I've heard some comments from you guys the last few weeks on limitations you see. Can you elaborate on those and maybe some examples of matches that might show them?
Oh, what did we say?
So we were we were talking about him. And
we were high when we did that show. I don't even remember. I'm just playing.
I wasn't even here.
We were talking about him in KOPW situations where when he's in the more gimmicky KOPW matches, those don't always work out in his strengths. But I mean, overall, Shingo is phenomenal. He's, you know, my 1A, 1B favorite wrestler in New Japan right now. He's incredible.
Yeah, if I were to audit this podcast, one thing that we tend to do, which is not great, sometimes we speak too insidery because oftentimes it's a conversation just between me and Jeremy, and we don't always take into account that not everyone listening is as aware of the product and some of the details as much as we are. So we'll just say things that we just assume everybody knows exactly what we're talking about. That's not always the case. Shingo is one of, in my opinion, a top 20 all-time wrestler that has ever lived and ever competed, period. Mm-hmm. And I think he's one of the absolute best wrestlers in New Japan and just wrestling in general today. When we were talking about limitations, we weren't saying that that there are things he can't do. We were just saying that they have put him in stipulation matches that are not conducive to a classically good wrestler. Like they put him in like an amateur. What were some of the matches that they put him in that were weird? They put him in a quasi karate match.
Yeah, with Great Okan, the MMA rules.
And,
a match like Chase Owens.
What was the other one?
It was a match with Chase Owens. I forget what the stipulation was.
Oh God, I don't remember either. Basically, just to kind of simplify it, the KOPW title is a title where each match is contested under a different stipulation. And when they've had stipulations that suck, the matches suck. And when they have stipulations that are great, he knocks it out of the park because he is great. That's pretty much it. That's long and short of it. So sorry if we gave you any indication that he was anything other than an all-time great Hall of Fame level wrestler.
I would go in the opposite direction and say, if you're newer to New Japan and you want to know about the complete scope of his ability, check out his Never Openweight Championship run.
Yes.
Because he had some really great matches. He had that one with Tanahashi. He even finally I'm going to bring it back to Show. His loss to Show in their match at Dominion was good. And if you are more curious about how wacky and wild the King of Pro Wrestling can get, chase up Yano's reign. Very long reign. There's a wide variety of fun to be had.
Yeah. I mean, and if you're not aware, during the pandemic, there was a 9-month period where Shingo Takagi was the world champion and basically the ace of the brand and carried the entire company on his back and had the best match. He was our wrestler of the year. So also, I mean, you could always check out his junior run during the Best of the Super Juniors, where he's just a juggernaut destroying everybody in his path.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's fun too.
Yeah, 2019.
Yes. All the yes.
Yeah, destroying that block in the awesome finals against Will Ospreay, which is just so. I watched that match like 3 times when it happened.
If you haven't seen Shingo in New Japan, the top 2 series we could probably recommend would either be his multiple great matches against Tomohiro Ishii or his multiple great matches against Will Ospreay. Those primarily stand out as probably being his 2 best opponents in the company all time.
And I agree with Karen too on that Tanahashi never title match. I love that match so much it made me write a column like that match.
Yeah,
it spoke to you.
Yeah, it was a great matchup. So then moving on to today's show from Korakuen, April 3rd, we had Hanare and Great Okan defeating Oscar Lube and Tomohiro Ishii. Post-match, Ishii was getting into a fight with United Empire, so maybe we'll get something going there. Maybe Ishii versus Okan for the Rev Pro title, maybe. Then we had Master Wato, Tiger Mask, and Yo defeating Doki, Taka, and Kanemaru from Just 5 Guys. Then we had Taguchi, Umino, and Toriano defeating ELP, Gato, and Taiji Ishimori. Post-match, ELP grabbed a sign that a fan made that said ELP, 5th Bullet Club leader, and he was kind of staring at it. So, again, planting seeds for things to come there.
Did you see the back of it?
I did not see the back. I only saw the front. What did the back say?
It had ELP's logo and Finley's logo side by side and said, which is the next leader?
Ooh. Feels like the 2025 election. Or what year is the next election? 2024? Yeah, the 2024 election.
Then after that, we had Jeff Cobb and Aussie Open defeating Bishamon, Tomioka Honma. Aussie Open hitting the Coriolis on Honma. Then we had the LIJ team of Hiromu Shingo and Naito defeating TMDK's Kosei Fujita, Robbie Eagles, and Zack Sabre Jr. Naito getting a Boston Crab on Fujita. And this was all building up the Robbie Eagles Hiromu matchup. They had some great interactions in the match. And also post-match, Shingo and Sabre went face-to-face with both of their titles. Also, Shingo's KOPW and Sabre is the TV champion, and they've had great matches in the past, so maybe we'll get some kind of matchup with them in the future. Then the semi-main event, we had the Mega Aces defeating Just 5 Guys, Sonata and Taichi. Tanahashi got a roll-up on Taichi, kind of a flash pin there. But post-match, Sonata did have Okada laid out once again, so Sonata standing strong second night in the row going into this world title matchup.
Sus.
And then the big main event for this night was the never openweight 6-man tag team title no countout match, and Team Strong Style, El Desperado, Minoru Suzuki, and Ren Narita defeated House of Torture's Evil Show and Yujiro to retain the titles. This was a wild, crazy brawl all up and down Korakuen with the no countout rule. Dick Togo was out there wearing one of the Despy masks that they stole from them getting involved in the match. But it was a wild, crazy brawl. Desperado ended up hitting the numero dos, or the Pinche Loco on show to get the win for his team. We had a question here from OK890.
One quick thing. During the post-match, did you see that Ren Narita called out Okada?
I did not see that.
Yeah. Not only did he mention that they're going to continue to defend the 6-man titles, but he mentioned Okada. Now he wants a crack at Okada.
Interesting.
Suzuki was in the backstage, was like, "You sure about that? Do you know what you're doing? Do you know what you want from Okada?"
Question here from OK890 says, not relevant to NJPW, but is the Bloodline just a more competent House of Torture?
I would say no.
It's apples and oranges.
I think the only thing that they have in common is they both cheat to win all their matches. But I mean, other than that, there's not a lot really to. I mean, one's a draw, one's not.
One's a main event act.
One's at the top of the entire wrestling industry, and one is not even at the top of their own company. Like, I don't know. They're not the same thing at all.
All right, well, now let's talk about the main show coming up this weekend, the main Sakura Genesis card coming up. A lot of big matches on the card. Opening the show is going to be a mystery 6-man tag team match. This is as a part to celebrate the 50th anniversary of it. Is it TVSI's anniversary?
It's the 50th anniversary of them broadcasting New Japan programming, apparently.
Nice. And so they're going to be doing a mystery vortex kind of thing here where we're not going to know until the night of and people's music plays who's going to be in the 6-man tag. So,
do you guys know what the deal is with that?
So for those who don't watch Shinichi Champion, which is basically the New Japan TV show, if you scroll through New Japan World near the bottom, there's like the variety TV program that all the wrestlers are on. The woman who hosts it is a Asahi television TV announcer. She does like the news and stuff like that, but she also hosts the show. It's been going on for like 3.5 years now. And every 6 months, for all the variety TV programming, there's always a fan vote. And whichever program of the top 10 programs that gets the number 1 spot gets a very big budget to have a very big special show. Well, for the first time, they finally got the number 1 spot. They got a trophy. They recorded the special event. But part of that TV programming, it was like a 2-part thing. Mitani, the girl who's the announcer, she goes to the New Japan office to talk to Obari, and he's like, "We want you to produce a match for Sakura Genesis as part of the celebration of the 50th anniversary between TV Asahi and New Japan." And basically said, well, and she's like, "Well, if I'm going to do it, I want to be able to pick something that's off the wall and not just like Hantai and Chaos teaming up against Bullet Club and LIJ. She wanted to do something fun." And he said, "All right, well, put together your match proposal and we'll take a look at it and see what we can accommodate." But so it seems to be they had 6 silhouettes in the match graphic. So it's looking like possibly 3-on-3, but which 3 from which factions, we don't know.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting to see who ends up in that matchup.
So beyond that, when New Japan first launched in 1972, they did actually air their very first show on Net TV, but it was like a one-off special. Like they didn't actually have a distribution deal with any, and Net TV is TV Asahi for those of you that don't know. They didn't have a distribution deal with Net TV or any other television provider at that point, and they actually had to persist for over a year as just a live events touring company. And a lot of people were predicting their downfall, like they were going to go out of business essentially because they didn't have television. And the first major show that they did, which actually started their official broadcast television partnership with TV Asahi, which has persisted since 1973, was the world's strongest tag team match. And it was a tag team match between Antonio Inoki and Seiji Sakaguchi, who had just jumped from JWP. And he was like the number 2 guy over there. So he jumped as like one of the absolute biggest stars in Japan at the time to take on Karl Gotch and Luthez in like an all-time dream match, essentially. And it's one of the few like major matches that we have tape of Karl Gotch in New Japan competing. And it's one of like the most famous matches in New Japan history. They went 44 minutes essentially, and it did huge TV ratings, and they've been doing television together for 50 years ever since then.
Nice. So yeah, looking forward to seeing who's going to end up in this mystery matchup. Should be a fun way to open up the show. 2 notes that I forgot about the Road 2 shows. We did have a video package from Kevin Knight and Kushida. Kushida teaching Kevin Knight in Japanese, and then
it's so cute.
They got their team name. They're now the Jet Setters, and they will be coming to Japan. They want the IWGP Junior Tag Team Championships and issue the challenge to catch 2-2. So we'll probably be seeing that sometime in the future. And also we had the continued video package of the mystery person, the alien, the whatever is landing, something's coming to New Japan. So they continue to air those vignettes. So maybe that guy will be in this mystery matchup. Maybe Jet Setters will be in this mystery matchup. Who knows? We'll see.
Karen, who do you think is the the Globe Video person.
It always makes like one. I love that it's like designed like an old Godzilla tokusatsu type of monster movie where it's like it's Armageddon / oh my god, something's gonna crash into the planet. I always feel that these packages are to reveal the return of a young lion from excursion. That's always my gut reaction, because now that you think about it, Tsuji and Uemura have been here over 2 years or close to 2 years at this point. It might be time for one of them to go home. I just don't know if they're ready to do it that soon, because with travel opening and more people coming back, like more of the foreign talent coming back to Japan, they're running out of space for people. Yeah. They're not exactly like letting people go. Mm-hmm. If they let them go to the United States to work in Impact and AEW and the Indies, but they always come back. So my heart is telling me it's Uemura. My gut is telling me it's Tsuji.
You said it's like a monster movie video?
Yeah, like if you were to watch
like a kaiju?
A kaiju film, basically.
What if it's Bill Goldberg?
Oh God,
what?
no. Ew.
Bro, what if it's Bill Goldberg?
Bro, no, don't kill my vibe.
I mean, I never really thought of those videos as being monster movies, but once you said that, I'm like, he is a free
If that's
agent.
the case, it's me. I'm coming soon. I'm going soon. This is the last time you're going to see me as Karen. I'm going to come back as something much, much scarier.
I'm down for a Bill Goldberg versus Okada match.
Oh my gosh. What would that match even look like?
5 stars?
Okada would be. I don't know if Okada could carry him to a 5-star match.
Okada can carry me to a 5-star match. Okada's the greatest.
So, following that mystery matchup, the show opened up with United Empire's Aaron Henare, Francisco Akira, and Jeff Cobb versus the House of Torture's Evil Show in Yujiro. No really storyline implications there that I can really see of, so just a 6-man opener. Then following that, we'll have Bushi, Shingo Takagi, and Tetsuya Naito taking on Doki, Taichi, and Yoshinobu Kanemaru from Just 5 Guys. Know the history with Shingo and Taichi and Shingo and Naito, so that'll be reignited there. Then we have the Bullet Club team of David Finlay, El Phantasmo, and Kenta versus Hikuleo, Tamatonga, and Master Wato. And we had a question here from Rambo and Slam Pig. It says El Phantasmo and David Finlay are on the same side of a 6-man match with Tamatonga and Hikuleo on the other side. I sent an angle incoming. Do you have a preference on who stays and who goes if a Bullet Club eviction is incoming? I would like to see a babyface ELP.
I'm okay with it being a babyface ELP, but I kind of feel like him being the leader of Bullet Club would be pretty cool. At the same time, David Finlay might need it more. I don't know.
We are after Sakura Genesis, we will be on the road to the 10th anniversary of Bullet Club at Dontaku in May. So we're gearing up for lots of Bullet Club matches getting set up in the next month or so after this. But for me, it's like I want Bullet Club to kick out House of Torture at this point. I want that was the fallout I've been waiting for over a year now, that it was either going to be Tama kicking out Evil, Jay kicking out Evil, somebody kicking out Evil, and them dissolving and being picked up other places. But
what about the Rogue Army? How do you feel about them?
Oh, Fale and Co.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on Libert Lucci? That's what I want to know.
I have no idea of whom you speak, sir.
He's a Bullet Club legend. That's who he is.
Well,
Libert Lucci of the Rogue Army branch of the Bullet Club.
Obviously, I am not as I have a very limited knowledge of the depth and scope of all of Bullet Club.
All right. Well, then what about Caveman Ugg? How do you want him to? How do you think he feels about the exodus of Jay White, Caveman Ugg?
I think Caveman Ugg will be fine. Caveman Ugg is probably watching Raw after Mania right now, trying to figure out if we're gonna get Jaime Blanco the butter knife bastard to come out.
Oh my god.
Well, if you want to learn more about Caveman Ugg and Liber Lucci, Josh did do a solo episode this past weekend reviewing.
Oh yeah, we didn't plug my shit.
Reviewing
nice segue.
Tamashii 3 and 4. So he did a solo show reviewing those shows. Feature the Bullet Club Rogue Army growing as the Bad Luck Fale runs things in the Oceanic region.
Yeah, they're awesome. That Rogue Army.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, I think the ship has kind of sailed with the whole House of. Because when Evil was like a factor in the leadership, equation of Bullet Club, there was something there with him and Jay, and then they never capitalized on it. And I think now that's just he's firmly in mid card status. They're kind of just I don't know.
They're like
Who
the
knows?
They're like the weird cousins of the family. They don't want to invite them to like the family gatherings, but they always send the invite and they'll show up when they feel like it. So I don't know. I just want something more for them. That's not House of Torture. I want it to go away.
I will say this. There's a lot of people out there that are really like New Japan content creators and people that are in the know that feel very strongly that they need to pay homage to like the Bullet Club for their 10th year anniversary. There's people writing articles and doing, series and specials. Jeremy, I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing shit for the Bullet Club 10 year. I don't care whatsoever about Bullet Club's 10 year anniversary. Because to me, it's just a shell of a shell of a shell of a shell at this point. I think it's going to be interesting. I am invested in this story with ELP and David Finlay, but I'm not into the lore of the Bullet Club at this point. Like, I don't want to rehash Kenny Omega and Cody Rhodes at this point. Like, I don't care. You know what I mean?
Can I give you guys a spicy take?
Yeah.
What's that?
I feel like they need to dissolve both Chaos and Bullet Club.
Oh, you're speaking our language.
Do a draft. Same thing with
draft?
Hontai. A draft.
Like WWE style?
No,
Stardom style.
Like Stardom?
Pick like Stardom draft. Give like 3 guys each their own faction, and they got to pick team members. I need some people to feel fresh.
I don't care about Chaos or Bullet Club at this point, and I think we've kind of echoed those same sentiments on this show multiple times. Like, I have no investment in either brand. I don't care. Like, they clearly don't care. Like, why do we care still? Except for the fact that they sell a lot of T-shirts.
I'm on that what's his face I'm on that Jado. So what? I don't care.
You want to know what my other hot take is? I'd be fine if LIJ broke up at this point too.
Yeah. Throw them in the draft.
Like, we're freshening things up. Let's move on. It's a youth movement. It's the new generation.
Give us the book, Ghetto. We'll make you some money.
All right. First order of action. Shingo's getting his own faction.
Hence dissolving
awesome.
LIJ.
Oh, yeah.
Dragon Goon. But yeah, this ELP Finlay, there's probably definitely going to be some kind of angle. Obviously, throughout this Road to Tour, ELP has been, saying he wants to be the leader, that he's next in line for being the leader. And obviously, Finlay wants a spot, so I think we'll probably get a definitive who's actually taking over the club from this matchup, maybe. Kenta.
Let Kenta take over.
My opinion on this, I think God and Wato, the Hontai team, will probably win here, deepening the rift between the various camps within Bullet Club. I think we'll see a quasi angle. I don't think we're going to see the big angle that people are thinking is going to happen. I know it's a big show, but I think they're going to save that for the anniversary.
Yeah, maybe it'll end up being Finlay versus ELP at Dontaku. Winner gets leadership.
Bullet Club.
Yeah.
Wow, it's almost like you watched this show, Jeremy. That's a keen observation. I bet you that happens.
So following that matchup, it gets into the meat of this show. Gets several title matches. So first we'll have the NJPW World Television title match. As the champion, the frontman of TMDK, Zack Sabre Jr., will take on the roughneck Shota Umino. We know that Shota earned this title match by defeating Zack in the New Japan Cup a couple of weeks ago. The big story there is he did not beat him in under 15 minutes, though.
I would be personally very surprised if Shota Umino beats Zack Sabre Jr. within the 15-minute time limit. I don't know that I love Zack being the champion and everything like that, but I don't love the idea that he's modern day William Regal from WCW in 1993. Like, I don't know if I need every match to be this, is he going to go to the limit sort of thing? The only saving grace is they haven't done any too many time limit draws, which was like a staple of William Regal's TV title reign, but they tease it a lot and they go very near the 15-minute limit. I was kind of hoping this would really be like a high-speed belt like what we see in Stardom, and it really hasn't been that. Mm-hmm. Aside from that, though, obviously there's been a lot of ups and downs with the Shota Umino experiment so far, and I'm hoping that this will be a positive step in the right direction for his career trajectory, win or loss. That's kind of what I'm looking for from here, because obviously, like, Zack's great, and I think him and Shota Umino could go out there and really have a great match, but it's going to kind of fall on them to deliver.
What do you think, Karen? Who's walking away with the belt?
I feel like Zack has a lot. I wish they would give him more because it's only 15 minutes. I want him to be defending the belt with a little more frequency, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Because I feel like he's just gaining momentum, and this is his thing now. So as much as I want Shota to win it, I don't think he's going to. I don't think it's his time just yet.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Zack's either going to retain by just winning, or it's going to go the 15-minute draw, since their previous match went over 20 minutes. I think Zack is just on momentum right now. TMDK, they're really building up that faction, adding in Robbie Eagles. A lot of momentum behind Zack. I do think maybe Umino or one of these other younger guys will eventually beat Zack, but I think you want to build Zack up some more, get some, prestige behind that TV title. And I agree, I would like to see more defenses. Traditionally, TV titles, you would see a defense like every week, and I know that also with New Japan, on their tour schedule, it's not a weekly TV show. But I think, on some of these Road 2 shows, you can throw in Zack for some, somebody random just to get some more defenses.
I could see him keeping the belt either to Dominion or just after, and then losing it by the G1. So then he could be in the conversation to win the G1 like he should have been for a couple of years now.
I don't have any inclination that anyone's beating him anytime soon until they really convince me by giving us a very compelling title challenge program. You know, and to me, what that looks like is probably one of these guys that he's already beaten coming back to reclaim their victory, whether that be Shota Umino or Ren Narita. It could be somebody else, but as of now, there's no one in the waiting that I'm like, they're the next guy on deck. So, I mean, I don't even see a reason why Zack couldn't hypothetically hold this for a prolonged period, because, I personally don't see him as being someone that's going to win the G1 personally.
Let Ishimori go after him with it.
That would be cool.
You want a high-speed match? You put him in there with Ishimori or Kanemaru.
I don't know. The last time Ishimori had a belt, there was like 2 defenses in a year.
Right.
Well, that's on the booker. If I were in charge, he'd be his dance card would be a lot more full.
I agree. I'd also feel sometimes like he's sort of uninspired, and maybe he needs a fresh new challenge, not just the same opponents in the same division for years on end.
And multiple reigns with the same belt.
Yeah. I think that could be something fresh, challenging, and something that could be inspiring for a guy like him.
Yeah, definitely. So we're all going Zack for this match. Next we have
we're going chalk.
The IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team title match. The champions Bishamon, Hiroki Goto, and Yoshihashi will defend against United Empire's Aussie Open, Kyle Fletcher and Mark Davis.
Gonna make it very simple. We're getting new champions. They've had a fantastic reign. They've really established themselves as the flag bearers of this division, speaking of Bishamon. And there's not much more for them to prove. They could continue to have a great reign, of course, but it just feels like the right time. They've been building up Aussie Open for a while now. I think it would be the fresh thing to do on a big show like this. I think we're seeing new champions.
Who you got, Karen?
Aussie, Aussie, Aussie. Oi, oi, oi. Sorry, I've always wanted to do that.
Yeah, I agree with both of you guys. I think Aussie Open are going to win the tag titles. These guys have been on an incredible roll lately. They were all over the place WrestleMania weekend in the Impact tag title match and the Ring of Honor tag title match. And so, yeah, finally getting the big opportunity.
You're saying they had 2 world title match challenges and they failed both times. So,
but it was multi-man. Right? It was multi-man. They didn't, take the fall in either match.
If you're not first, you're last, Jeremy. You would know that if you saw the Ballad of Ricky Bobby, okay? Losers.
But now it's gonna be mano a mano here with Aussie Open and Bishamon, and Bishamon beat Aussie Open back in the World Tag League to get to the Tag League Finals. So I think now it's Aussie Open's time. They've built up a ton of momentum. They're one of the best tag teams in pro wrestling today. So yeah, I think now is the time to flip the belts and give them a run.
I'll tell you this much. If this match is under 4 stars, I'll be very surprised. I think regardless of who wins, they're going to tear the house down.
Yeah, it's going to be a great matchup. So then following that, we will have the IWGP Junior Heavyweight title match. The ticking time bomb, Hiromu Takahashi, will defend against our good friend Robbie Eagles, now a member of TMDK, leaving Chaos, joining the fact that he was tired of being skipped over by Yo and Leo Rush. So jump ship, joined Zack Sabre Jr. in the gang with TMDK, and he's now getting this title shot here against Hiromu.
Jeremy, since you have checked out the undercard matches I guess, Karen, you've seen some of it too, so I could ask both you guys. What have you noticed about Robbie and aside from obviously I've seen some pictures and he's got new gear that's in line with the TMDK colors, but is there any discernible differences with his presentation, his moveset, his attitude, anything? What are your impressions?
TMDK is, chaos adjacent in the sense that,
right.
Mikey Nichols is still listed as part of Chaos in certain parts of the New Japan websites. So it's kind of like he just said, I need space to spread my wings, as it were. And if I'm going to do that, I might as well go with, it's very much like Sonata leaving LIJ, just kind of more of an Irish exit or an Aussie exit in this example, where he just kind of decides to up and leave. Mm-hmm. But he's not being any more or less heelish. He's just smiley Robbie Eagles.
Mm.
Yeah, presentation for the most part still pretty the same. Still a lot of the same maneuvers. I think probably the one thing that was probably a little bit more quote unquote heelish, and he was doing his Robbie chant. He had his foot on Hiromu's neck and was doing the
well, there's that.
The Robbie, but the crowd was still cheering for him, and they were doing the call and response with him. And he was still doing a lot of his high flying maneuvers, still trying to do the Ron Miller special. So as of right now, maybe in this matchup there'll be some different stuff, but on those Road 2 shows, it was still a very similar moveset presentation.
Well, I haven't checked any of that out. I want to see it. Obviously, there's a simmering story that they've done a great job on commentary, sort of highlighting that through Hiromu's title reign. He's had title challenges against other Chaos Junior members and Yo and then Leo Rush. And that's kind of been the impetus for Robbie Eagles jumping to TMDK, his frustration with sort of being on the back burner and being third in line with the group and why he sort of made that move. We, on this podcast, we put out a tweet earlier this year how there really hasn't been a prolonged junior title reign since Hiromu's first title reign in 2015. It's been going on for a while now where every time someone wins the belt, they get 1 or 2 defenses and then it's hot potato. And it's been a very long time since someone had a lengthy, established, full of defenses reign. And on January 4th, that's what Hiromu said his goal for the year was, to break the all-time title defense record, which means he would need 12 successful consecutive defenses, which the way that they book juniors in this company, that's going to take a long time unless they give him a couple extra defenses on like US shows or something of that nature. So I guess the real question is, do we think that with a gimmick change and a big move, the way that they've just done that with Robbie, is that the sure tail sign that they're getting ready to move the title over to him? And he is a former champion. He's a guy that people are behind. He's very popular. And I could see that happening. But I'm kind of feeling personally like this story about Hiromu defending the title 12 times straight, I think it's going to come to pass. I think it's transpiring before our eyes. I don't think as many members of the media have caught on to it the way this podcast has. But I think that's what's happening. And I think that, like, if they didn't put the title on Lio Rush, I won't be surprised if they go with Robbie, but I don't think they are. I think we're seeing another legendary title defense in what's going to be essentially Hiromu's legacy-defining run with the belt. The thing that puts him in the same conversation with your Tiger Masks, your Ligers, and your Fujinamis. He's going to be this generation's version of that, and I think he needs this run to break Heat's title reign record.
That's the tricky thing, is that he's already won the championship 5 times.
Right.
He hasn't necessarily had long reigns with them, but he broke the record for, I think, the greatest number of like winning the title number of times. I think 5 was like the wall he needed to scale.
I think Liger's got more still.
Does he? Okay.
I think Liger has like 8. I'll check.
That would make sense. But he's also the returning and defending Best of Super Juniors winner. I don't think they're going to take I don't think they're going to take the belt off of him with like 6 weeks before Best of Super Juniors, because usually Hiromu's one of the guys that they depend on to be in the main event of a lot of these matches, or the semi-main, or to really hype up people. I feel like if they were to take the belt off of him before that, it might derail his, like, not necessarily his momentum, but the momentum for the Super Junior tournament as a whole, because people have very high expectations for him, as they always do. As much as I would love to see Robbie have have the championship, and I want Robbie to get the championship eventually and have more than 2 defenses with it. He was another one that was like, he got it very briefly, and then it got hot potatoed back to like either Ishimori or Hiromu, and I'm like, but why? But yeah, if they're, they let Hiromu like craft his Super Junior tournament last month, it's some, or his Super Junior show. I feel like they have something special with Hiromu. I could easily see him keeping the championship until the Dome, or at least to break that successive record, whether he starts doing double duty where it's like, all right, I'll defend it here and then I'll go to the States, defend it on one of the shows there, and I'll come back and I'll defend it again. Like every 2 weeks he's having a defense. Problem is that within New Japan, in Japan, the pool of available juniors that aren't going to get tied up in the tag title run is also where it gets tricky, because then you have to make sure that you're not having that overlap of possible double champ situations where one, like a tag member of a tag team, is trying to go for the title as well.
Right.
But if they start shipping him back and forth, do a Tanahashi where he flies in for the weekend, does a show, does a defense, and then goes back home. Sure. The hard thing about that is they got to make sure that it's not on a weekend where New Japan's running a show in Japan, because when he's not on shows in Japan, he's another one that fans will sell their tickets and be upset that he's not on a show. So it's very tricky, like, game of risk they're playing with him. But as much as I would love Robbie to get the belt, I could see not it ending in, like, I don't think they would let it go 60 minutes. So I can't say, time limit draw, and then he'll try again later. But I think that Robbie will definitely give him a run for his money, but it may have to wait till at least after Super Juniors and or Dominion before we see the title change.
So real quick before we get your thoughts, Jeremy, I'm not sure what New Japan considers officially the record for IWGP Junior title reigns because Liger now it's either 10 or 11 all-time title reign, so it's a lot. But in his last title reign, during his 10th reign, there was a 1-week period where he lost the title on Nitro to Juventud Guerrera, and that was not signed off on by New Japan Pro Wrestling. Ooh. And then they had to get the title back onto Liger for an 11th reign. And I know for years, New Japan just ignored the Juventud reign entirely, but I think they might have retconned it at this point. So he's either a 10 or 11-time champion. So Hiromu's not even close to that record, but realistically, I don't think anyone's ever going to hold that title that many times.
Yeah.
If they keep hot potatoing it, you never know.
You never know, but I still.
Yeah, and Karen, I thought you brought up a great point as far as the time of the year for the resultless matchup. Like, I definitely agree with you, Josh, on the whole story that we've been talking about with the number of defenses. I do think they're going to let that story play out this year. But also, too, like Karen mentioned, that the timing of the year, you got Best of Super Juniors that will be happening in May. Like you mentioned, Hiromu is the guy that you usually main event whatever block he's in for those shows. Now, we have seen tournaments where he's not the champion and he's still main eventing, but then the champion's not main eventing, and that looks weird. And so I would hate for Robbie to win this belt and then go into Super Juniors and he's like semi-main eventing, middle of the card as a champion instead of main eventing the tour. So I think from just a timing standpoint with a schedule, it makes more sense for Hiromu just to retain. And plus, the champion it's unlikely for the champion to actually win a tournament, and we don't need to see Hiromu win again. So have him go in there with the belt. He can main event whatever, A block, B block, whatever block he's in, get close to the finals, not get to the finals, not win it, and he can be the champion. You set up another defense there. Heck, maybe you have Robbie win the tournament to get the rematch. Who knows? But yeah, I definitely think Hiromu is going to win here and go into Super Juniors as champion.
Yeah. Sorry. But no, that was what I'd say. Like, Robbie could easily be in the conversation to win the Super Juniors if he wasn't challenging right now.
Right now, correct.
Because there is Don Taku, but why have him try twice in the span of 2 months? So, yeah.
I think, and I don't know. This is just my gut instinct. I think that regardless of who wins this match, and this is all still pretty early conjecture, but whoever wins Super Junior is not winning the title unless it's Desperado. Like, my guess, just based on New Japan's booking, if Desperado wins Super Juniors, he has a very good shot at being the guy that turns around and wins the title.
Do you think they'll let him be in Super Junior as a never open weight 6-man though?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Because it's open weight.
Yeah. Okay.
I think anybody else that wins the tournament, regardless of whether the champion at the time is Robbie or Hiromu, it's going to be an elevation situation where by winning the tournament, they're elevated and then they lose in a great match and defeat. That would be the booking. But my suspicion is Hiromu's going to win. He's going to go into the tournament as the champion and either be in the finals and lose or be one of the block finalists and lose. But I think he'll lose a couple key losses to talent from across. Like, I'm thinking they're probably going to bring in people from Impact, maybe a name from AEW, and probably various names from Japanese indies, like, El Lindemann, for example, people like that. And I think we'll see him lose a couple key losses that set up his next few title defenses, just in general. And I think that a lot of what we saw at All-Star Junior Festival was a key indicator of what guys might be on the docket to be in that tournament anyways.
Please bring a Moxa into Best of the Super Juniors. Please and thank you.
Yeah.
And Ellen Min, bring him back.
Junior Hayato.
Woo! Let's go.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah, from the Impact side of things, I would love Speedball to get in there this year. I think that'd be a great addition.
Speedball would be cool, but I think they're kind of gearing him up for like more of like a main event style run. I'm not gonna be surprised if he's a world title contender in the very near future or even holder. I think that it's more likely we're gonna see the guys from the Bullet Club, like Chris Bay
and Ace Austin. Yeah.
Or Ace Austin. Yeah.
So we're all going here. Hiromu retaining the title. That takes us to our next title match.
Also, before we talk about that, how ridiculous is it? There's Bullet Club Impact, there's Bullet Club Australia, there's Bullet Club House of Torture, and then there's a fractured Bullet Club in New Japan. Just saying.
Dissolve it all.
We don't need this.
So next matchup here we'll talk about is for the IWGP Women's title, happening in a 3-way match. The champion Mercedes Moné will be taking on Hazuki and Azumi.
I am so sick and tired of hearing of the outrage from the Mercedes fans about the fact that this isn't going on last. Okay, the internet's been blowing up over this. Oh wait, there's been no outrage whatsoever. There's been no attention from any of her fans about the fact that this isn't going on last. It's almost like they don't actually care that this match is happening in Japan. They only care when it's a show in the US that's during their time that they can watch, It's weird. It's weird, bro. It's weird. I thought she was a bigger star than Okada. I mean, where's the outrage? I don't get it. It's weird.
Yeah, Moné stands have been quiet on this one.
They're called the Sasha Crew, isn't that the name?
Well, they're
Crew with a K.
Yeah, what's up, crew? Why aren't you guys freaking out? I thought this was your girl, You guys aren't going to be tuning in to New Japan World at 2 a.m. to watch this? No? All right.
This is why we're friends, Josh. You're my anger interpreter.
So, Karen, what are your thoughts on this one?
So where do I even begin with this one? Very much like Mercedes being announced at the Tokyo Dome a month before she was supposed to be at the Tokyo Dome, or not announced, it was leaked that she was going to be in Japan, whatever. A couple of weeks ago, while they were in Yamaguchi at Mayu Iwatani's home prefecture, Mayu basically called next on whoever wins this match between Hazuki and Azumi and Mercedes, which spiraled from Mercedes calling out Azumi at Wrestle Kingdom, Azumi finally answering prior to the Cinderella tournament, and Hazuki saying, "Hey, you and I have a match first round of the Cinderella tournament." I don't like Cinderella to Stardom stuff bleeding over into New Japan. I don't want New Japan booking to affect Stardom and vice versa. I want that to be like separate. If you want to call next, that's fine, but don't make it overly complicated. It just started to feel like very overconflated booking. Both Azumi and Hazuki are high speed. I think Mercedes might have bit off a little more than she could chew. If anybody saw the video of Azumi choosing to take Hazuki out of the tournament by doing a La Mystica off the ring apron to the floor, and Mercedes having giant oh my gosh eyes. Yeah, it's worth chasing up that match. It was a good match, but it's one of those things where, because Mayu Iwatani has called next for Stardom's biggest show of the year that isn't Grand Queen or Wrestle Queendom at the end of the Dream Queendom at the end of the year, she wants the match at the Yokohama Arena at All-Star Grand Queendom in 2 weeks. I don't see Mercedes dropping the belt to either of them just for them to challenge Mayu, who Mayu wins everything. So it's probably going to be Mercedes wins here, and then she drops the belt to Mayu, and then she's done. That's where I'm at right now with everything.
Yeah.
I think Josh muted himself.
Yeah.
Oh, my bad. Yeah, I thought I unmuted myself, and I was like, But anyways, I don't have as much, obviously, insight to the Stardom side of things. I can't speak to that as eloquently as Karen has. But the one thing that has really caught my attention was, for a long time before this match even happened, it was pretty much well established and known that it was going to be Azumi versus Mercedes Moné. And then when they announced the match, all of a sudden Hazuki was involved in it. And I'm not opposed to that. I think it's great that both of those ladies are getting featured here in this contest, but it really calls into question why it even happened in the first place. And I really kind of only see it one of a few different ways. It's either like potentially Mercedes is dropping the title in short order. I don't think that should happen, but there is the possibility that they're trying to do the whole, she's dropping the belt, so they need a fall girl to come in and protect her.
Yep.
And that's the reason why they might have made it a triple threat. And so that could be a big red flag if that's the case.
Azumi is the high-speed champion as well. So, and her next defense is after this match.
So she might not be able to take a loss to Mercedes. So, or even, you know what, that might also be the case. Maybe she's not dropping the title at all, but she can't, but because of the politics of it all, she also can't cleanly defeat the high-speed champion. So they need Hazuki to come in and eat the loss.
Yeah.
The other reason could be, as great of a talent as Sasha is, and we have always said how fantastic of a wrestler she is, she clearly is not probably, and this is conjecture, but I've watched her whole career. I've never seen anything out of her that compares to what those high-speed girls are capable of doing. Maybe she just can't do that style with Azumi, and they kind of need a buffer in there for the Japanese audience, and Hazuki's the perfect foil, and that might also be the reason she's in there. Those are like kind of the main things I'm sort of thinking. The other thing too, and this is worth noting, her deal is pretty much reportedly supposed to be up during her next big match against potentially Mayu, and so maybe she just wanted to work with Hazuki and Azumi, and she only has one more date, and she was like, I want to maximize my little run here. So why don't we just throw Hazuki and Azumi in there so I could, basically cross both of them off the bucket list. That's what I'm kind of thinking. And it might be a little bit of all those things, honestly.
Yeah. And like you're saying, nail on the head there of her deal reportedly being up for that big Yokohama show that's coming up for Stardom. And yeah, I think it would make more sense for her to go in there as a champion, have this big dream match with Mayu Iwatani, and have Mayu beat her, get the belt just in time for, Mayu's, that movie about her life that's coming out pretty soon. So I think that's the direction they're going to go. And I think you made a great point, Josh, of, Mercedes not being able to work that full out high-speed style. So yeah, throwing in Hazuki, who's had also great high-speed matches with Azumi in Stardom, so somebody who can kind of help control the matchup there. Also, we haven't seen Sasha or Mercedes work with a ton of Japanese talent. She worked with Kairi, who speaks English. I'm not sure how Mercedes is going to work with, two Japanese fluent speakers who probably don't speak that much English. So I don't know how that whole match is going to work out.
They don't call things in Japan. It's all done by feel. And how is she going to work a triple threat match with girls that completely literally work Japanese style where they don't call anything in the ring? Unless they lay it out ahead of time.
I feel like they're probably going to have a planning meeting of some kind to organize it, largely because I always go back to that move that she did to Kairi at the Dome.
Yeah.
That image has stayed with me since January, and I don't think they want a repeat of that.
I think that there's a good chance. That I know everyone thinks that the next big match she does with Mayu, it should be for the title, and she does the honors and she drops the belt, and that's the end of her little run. But I think that she might, there might be a political aspect to it where literally Hazuki gets beat by Azumi. Azumi picks up the IWGP title, and then the match with Mayu doesn't need the title anyways. It's two huge names on a big Stardom show, and then she beats Mayu, and then she can literally leave and say, "I was never pinned or beaten in Japan, period." And that sounds kind of gross and nasty, but I think that that's a highly likely scenario.
I don't know if Bushiroad has another $100,000 to drop after April.
Yeah, I mean that's
or whatever it is. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean that's all definitely a possibility, but I do think it's just it'll be kind of weird booking with having Azumi be the high speed champion and the IWGP Women's Champion, plus Mayu already calling next for the Women's Championship in Yokohama. So
that's true.
So I mean, yeah, there's a lot of factors here, a lot of politics, a lot of booking details that I'll see Gato and Hatman are going to have to figure out. Rossi, they're going to have to figure out. But, I mean, hopefully this ends up being a good match. Also, you have 3 very talented women in here. We just don't know how Mercedes is going to fit in this puzzle piece of this high-speed style matchup.
I just hope she's ready to catch, because with Azumi in the ring, there's going to be a lot of need for a lot of catching for a lot of high spots.
Well, hopefully she didn't go to the Mrs. school for catching.
Well, luckily Stardom will be I'm hoping they'll have seconds around the ring where the girls will help with the catching. But
we've seen Sasha base before, but I don't think she's like known to be the best baser in women's wrestling or anything like that. So I don't know. There's also, I just have weird feelings about the entire run altogether. I was very optimistic when it first was announced and it happened, but a lot of the interactions with her audience and fan base has kind of soured me on it. And then, I don't want to like hyper criticize her or anything like that necessarily, like, especially if it's done unfairly. But when I think about other gaijin that have come into the company from the outside, who maybe also it was their dream to wrestle in New Japan and they were sort of like a showcase, like for instance, Jon Moxley, there just seemed to be a different kind of vibe and attitude about like his love, respect, and admiration for like Japanese wrestling and New Japan in general, and like how like it's a dream of his, you know what I mean? That it comes through, and like she says those words, but the actions don't always feel like that. You know what I mean? It just kind of feels like a bucket list thing to like raise her profile. And it's a cup of coffee and she's going to leave and go right back to WWE. And it's sort of like, all right, cool. Thanks for coming. Like, this didn't do anything for anybody. You got paid a lot of money and I don't get
it. Karen, anything to say?
No one's saying anything. Did I say something I'm not supposed to say? I don't know.
I'm just
whatever. I don't care.
I'm just watching Karen's reactions.
I've said my piece. I don't mess with the Sasha crew. Like they wear me out. They weared me out when I was a hardcore WWE fan. They wore me out when I was a hardcore NXT fan. I've been very diplomatic about my thoughts about everything, but yeah, I the hardest part about everything was how they hot potatoed they didn't give. I'm still mad about January, how Tam and Kyrie only got 5 minutes, and their entrances were longer than their match, and their match was shorter than any of the tournament matches leading up to that match. I just feel like you mentioned Moxley and other foreigners that have come into the country. They come over and they stay for a while.
Yeah,
they work road shows. They're in those 10-man tags.
She didn't do that. She flew in with the wrestlers.
She they train, they travel, they do the hotel thing, they do the long distance for like weeks or months at a time. She flies in, does what she does, and flies back out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where the disconnect is that we're not. I mean, it also, New Japan doesn't have a women's division. For those who are new to Stardom, Stardom's not New Japan's women's division. They're their sibling promotion. And, the time where she came over, they were already in the middle of a tournament at that point. They love their tournaments, and they're in the middle of another tournament right now. So it's like, I don't think because she, like the nature of her contract is, it severely limits how much the diehard New Japan fans that may or may not watch Stardom, or how the Stardom fans connect with her. There is a certain amount of relying on her star power from her time in WWE to make all of this fit together. But if you're only going to have her there for one show in the States and then 2 shows like a week and a half to 2 weeks apart in Japan, and then that's it, what happened to the half a year buildup and all the Stardom talent that did all of that work to make
Right.
the title viable for the company.
Well, even
And then
like,
does it get put on Mayu and she runs with it for a year? Because that's when Mayu gets a belt, she doesn't really lose it very quickly. She'll have that belt probably until the Dome.
well, keep in mind too, Mayu didn't want the belt to begin with in the first place. So
Right, because she wanted to be
that too.
she wanted to be paid more. She's gonna be having to travel to the US and do all these US dates on top of her Stardom dates.
No. When I spoke to her in Osaka, she wanted the belt. She wanted to do it. She gave up the SWA championship so she could pursue the IWGP championship. And then the next day she lost to Kairi in a great match. But it was now what? Like, now what is Mayu's done everything else in Stardom. She's won the 5-star. She's won, I think she won the 5-star. She's won the Cinderella tournament. She's held all the belts. This is literally the only thing she hasn't done.
The other thing too, aside from like the short changing of Stardom, you kind of compare and contrast. I think another good example is like Jericho. His first run in New Japan when it was just the one date, right? And then he set up a little angle with Naito, and you never knew if he was going to come back. There was a lot that went into that, the video packages and the angles and all the work he did online. And then he came over, and then there's the press conferences. And there was a lot that you could stick your teeth into, be like, okay, they're going full bore with this. And like, it just hasn't really matched up with the same vibe and energy with Sasha. And it's all been
mean something.
Right. You want it to mean something. Like, it's okay if she wins. It's okay if she loses. That's not the gripe here, but it feels like they're shortchanging everybody that is putting in the work. It feels very much like when, the gripe that people have about WWE when they bring in these part-timers that are undeserving, and, it's really just to kind of benefit them as opposed to the brand. And that's sort of what this feels like. But, maybe I should keep my mouth shut. I watched that show Swarm the other weekend, and I learned that there are certain fan bases you don't want to go against. They'll come after you. So,
yeah. And, also the reports of, Gato not really wanting to book women's wrestling. And the title just being absent.
Surprise.
Being absent from New Japan shows. Like, there's no mention of the title of her, like, on these broadcasts, no video package. Like, this match was announced via social media, like, on these Road 2 shows. Like, they didn't, like, mention, like, it was, like, no really, it doesn't feel like a New Japan title.
I feel like Kevin Kelly and Chris Charlton have done more to promote the IWGP, like, women's brand than the company itself has. Yeah. With all the work that they've like done to like research about the crossover with Stardom and stuff, like that's kind of something that they're doing on their own and taking upon themselves, that like the company's not doing all that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right. So what's our final?
Also, last thing, I have no clue what this match is going to look like. Maybe it'll be great. I don't know.
Just give them at least 10 minutes.
I'm sure they will. It's a co-main event.
Yeah,
you would hope.
Yeah, they should get some time.
You would hope.
So, final predictions?
Mercedes retains and loses in 2 weeks in Yokohama.
I think she retains and then loses to Mayu, but you never know.
Same here. All right, main event we got to talk about for the IWGP World Heavyweight title. The champion, the Rainmaker, Kazuchika Okada, will defend against the 2023 New Japan Cup winner, Sonata of Just Five Guys. All right, this is the big main event, the big matchup. Guys, will Sonata finish his story?
Oh my God. I don't want to relitigate this because we've discussed it at length and ad nauseum, and I feel like Karen has a lot of insight that she can offer with this, but so I'm not going to repeat all the same talking points I had for the last 2 to 3 weeks. If you want to hear all that, it's out there. We've discussed it, but I'll just say again, I feel I've never felt stronger that a New Japan Cup winner needed to turn around and win the title, except for maybe when it was Okada going up against Jay White at Wrestle Kingdom or in New York. That being said, less than a week out from the match, I feel like Okada is going to win, even though every fiber of my being is telling me it's the wrong call and it's not the way they need to go. I just feel that way.
I've waited 7 years for this day to come. It's been 84 years as a man. So my thing is that Sonata has left LIJ finally. He's got, he left LIJ on cutting room form. He's shaved. He's clean cut. And my other problem is he needs this win. He when it comes to wins and losses with Okada is like, that's the wall he can't scale. If they want to move forward with other stories and make other matchups that feel fresh, it needs to be Sonata. Now, again, talking about jumping the gun, had they not announced Tanahashi tagging with Okada in DC on the 16th or the 15th against Motor City Machine Guns and Aussie Open, I'd be like, sure, Okada probably has a shot. But I don't think they're going to have Okada in a triple threat match, potentially with 2 sets of tag team championships as the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. Because if not, that means there's only one outcome, and that's Tanahashi getting pinned again. So it needs to be Sonata. They need Okada. He's had the belt. He's had this belt twice. He can do other things. Let him go fight for the never open weight. Let him go fight Kenta for the strong open weight. Give him something else. Give him a project.
Okada can't do that. He's Hulk Hogan. He will only wrestle for the world title and nothing else, brother.
And put him on commentary for a few months. Like, make him sit one out.
They can pair him up with Brutus Barber Beefcake, and they can challenge for the tag team titles. But that's about it,
So is Tanahashi his Brutus to the Barber Beefcake?
I think it just died a little inside.
I think it's probably Yoshihashi, but I digress.
But yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much in agreement with you guys. I think Sonata needs to win this. I see what you're saying, Josh. That kind of that vibe of maybe Okada's gonna win, and Sonata's kind of had the momentum based off both of these Road 2 shows, and I feel like we're the only show that's kind of been pushing this Sonata needs to win. It feels like everybody else is okay with Okada winning and it being fine. But I feel like everything you're saying, Karen, the booking leads to Sonata winning. The change of the look, leaving LIJ, starting being a part of Just 5 Guys. He's a leader of a faction now. Second time going up against Okada for the title. It's like these are all these story elements of pointing Sonata towards winning the title. And again, like we said last week, I don't think he has to have a super long reign. He can win it, lose at Dominion. I'd be fine. But I think the story does call. I think the logical booking is for Sonata to win here. And I know a lot of people have been questioning the DC match. We had a question about that from Death Triangle 720. Do you think New Japan spoiled the main event of Sakura Genesis by putting Okada in a tag title match for Capital Collision? Now, we don't have the full Capital Collision card, but I could see Okada being IWGP champion and being in that match. Like you're saying, Tanahashi just eating the pin.
Yeah, when I say this, it's not us being like, well, maybe it could be. Like, they have had him as the world champion on various occasions, team up with Tanahashi in a lot of different situations. Yeah. And so there's precedent there that if he, in fact, personally, I never, when they made that announcement and I saw it, that never to me felt like it was playing into the outcome of this match whatsoever. In fact, if anything, and maybe I'm just flawed here, my initial gut reaction was like, he might still just be champion because it's a bigger draw to have the champion in a big tag team match against, other world tag team title holders. And it's a way to like put him on the show as champion, as the draw, without having to necessitate a title defense, another one, you know what I mean, and inflate the title reign. So no, I don't think it gives anything away. Maybe I'm wrong in thinking that. Maybe it is a dead giveaway and I just didn't think that way, but like, I don't see it that way personally.
The other interesting thing was that Sonata is also advertised, or at least using the graphics to promote Capital Collision and Collision in Philadelphia. So even if the title were to change, it still could go to the United States. It would just be on a different person. I just don't think if Mercedes and Hiromu are both going to retain before the main event, someone one of those three, somebody needs to lose the title. And for me, Sonata of the four other challengers, Sonata is the one that needs it the most.
Right. Well, I think here's the thing, and there's no secret here. There is a disconnect between the majority of a Western audience's feelings about Sonata as a character and their investment of him versus like the domestic audience. And, you know, I've always said this on the show. I make no illusions about it. I'm not the biggest Sonata fan in the world, personally. But there is this weird thing where we listen to all the other podcasts. I mean, not religiously, but we listen to what other people in the know are saying about the big matches. And we listen to, you know, we read articles and blah, blah, blah. We try to stay up and see what the general vibe is. We read the Discord channels. We see the discourse on Reddit and Twitter, and like the Western audience really thinks Okada's winning this match. It's like a foregone conclusion, and they actually, I think a lot of them just think it would be a huge mistake to go with Sonata, period, because they think like Okada's in the middle of a monster run. He's, you know, portraying this monster black trunk jumbo-esque character, and he's never really lost in a big spot to Sonata in the past, so they think there's precedent there. And you know, there's not necessarily a big vote of faith that Sonata could be the guy to revitalize the company in a certain sense. I do think, however, personally, I listened to Sonata in some of the press conferences, and he did mention, he said, whatever you think about me, and I'm kind of paraphrasing, he's like, whatever you think about me, I'm the guy that needs to win the title, because me winning the title marks a shift in who can win this belt and who can challenge for this belt in the general tone and tenor of the company. And I think that that's the case. And from a personal standpoint, as a fan, it would just feel like so wasteful and a waste of my time to have watched this dude go through the same tournament time and time and time again and almost win it, finally win it, and then face the guy that he's lost to so many times just to lose again. And like, I don't know how hot Sonata is. I don't have the metrics, the numbers. I don't know what kind of, you know, t-shirt sales he's doing and all that. I don't know if there's a lot of, you know, if there is a huge audience behind him. Jeremy, maybe you could speak more to this. I didn't see what the audience's reactions were for him and Sonata in these preview tag matches, but it just from a classic booking standpoint, it feels like it would be a huge mistake, for better or for worse, for Sonata to be put in this position once again and then fail once again. And we are just in this never-ending time loop where time is a flat circle. We're spinning our wheels. And like, if it was almost anybody else, I would say they don't need to beat Sonata or beat Okada. But because it's Sonata, because he's done this so many times, if he loses again, then the tournament was for naught. The run was for naught. The group is pretty much dead. And even if, like, let's say 6 months from now, you turn around and put the title on him, I don't know that they're going to be able to competently heat him up any more than they are right now. If they're ever going to do it, now's the time. This is not a Naito at Wrestle Kingdom 12 situation. This is not a guy that they're going to be able to keep hot for 2 years before they finally pull the trigger. It's now or never. He's going to go into Goto territory if you make him lose right here. And I'm going to be sitting here, and I'm not even a fan of his, but I'm going to be like sick to my stomach being like, what are we doing? Why did we even book that? You should have just had Dave Finlay win if they're going to go that way. It's going to feel a lot like what Roman and Cody probably looked like the other night. Yeah. And even worse, what Sammy and Roman looked like in Montreal.
Yeah. I have a question here from Rambo and Slam Pig. Says, I'm sold on the idea that Sonata is going to win the big one. If he does, who do you think would be a good fit for that first program? Please don't say Evil.
I don't know that I have any kind of inklings of what I don't know what a Sonata title run looks like. I don't know who the next guy should be. Maybe you guys have a better feeling about it. To me, the whole story is let's just get the title on him and then let's go from there. I don't even need anyone to come out after he wins the belt and challenge. I would be fine if just right now he wins the belt and then him and just 5 guys just celebrate and they go off the air and we can worry about a title challenge, on the next tour, period.
All right. I'll give you my wish list, but then I'll give you what I think is going to actually happen. Tanahashi versus Sonata is always a good match. If Zach and Shingo didn't have championships on them, I'd say either of them. A cheeky Shota Uno. People are like, oh, Ren Reed already called that Okada. Okada doesn't need to have the championship to have a never 6-man match with Ren Reed, so we're going to put that over there. What I think's going to happen with Don Taco being the next big show, it's either going to be ELP or David Finlay. I could see
that's a good call.
If you're going to talk about, things coming to a head between Bullet Club, if Bullet Club's going to survive, they're either going to try to win the belt for the club, and I feel like they would push ELP forward for that, or David Finlay is going to try to come back for seconds because Geto can't help himself. But yeah, I feel like it might be someone from Bullet Club.
Yeah, and historically, the runner-up in the New Japan Cup usually does get a title shot pretty soon after New Japan Cup, so it would make a ton of sense to run back Sonata versus Dave Finlay at Dontaku, Bullet Club 10-year anniversary. So I think they could probably go that route, or if they end up doing Finlay versus ELP in a singles, they could go the LIJ route. Maybe you have Naito challenge and you run that back and you do Naito and Sonata for the title.
Or Shingo because he's grumpy about the way Sonata chose to leave.
Right, yeah. And we've seen Shingo already challenge with KOPW, so that's not a detriment to him. So you could run that back as well.
Kijimuto probably would do the match.
Kaito Kiyomiya doesn't have a belt right now.
Yeah, maybe the something is coming person, the globe person will be the next challenger.
I assure you it's not me.
Nakamura's not doing anything. They can bring in Nakamura. He didn't even work WrestleMania. I'm sure he's available. If they're going to let him just come over and work shows in Japan, you might as well just let him work Sonata.
How about Asuka? Let her come over. she lost at Mania too, so let her come over and challenge for it. Why not?
Since it is the Bullet Club anniversary, and we feel like there's this thing going on with ELP and David Finlay, and maybe they got to duke it out. What if it is Evil?
Ew.
I know I don't feel that, but considering their history and the fact that he's kind of like a quasi leader, they might.
Might be.
And he's not a 6-man champs right now.
Because if whoever comes out of that match between Robbie and Hiromu, I could easily see Ishimori being in the conversation for the junior match at Dontaku.
Yeah,
I do think that there's a bit of an issue, regardless of who wins, one way or the other, where there's not a good compelling challenger for either champion on the horizon. And the one argument you might have for Okada is that Okada's a draw regardless of who he wrestles, period. I mean, it'll help to have a good dance partner, but it's not always necessary. In fact, there's probably a lot of people that think that the classic booking of this tournament is like the champion beats the winner and then goes on to Dontaku and fights the runner-up, which would be David Finlay, which would kind of make sense. And that might be your argument for an Okada win. Conversely, with Sonata, he's a star, but he's not a guy that is proven box office draw at the top of the card time in, time out. He kind of does need a good, compelling person to be his foil, and there's no one on the horizon that I could see them doing big business. The only person that maybe would make sense that we haven't talked about, and I don't know his situation, what if Will Ospreay is available in May?
There's potential there, yeah.
They have a lot of history.
If he's healthy, yes, but I feel like if they're trying to save him for something, they're probably saving him for Forbidden Door.
That's true.
I could easily see them saying we're not going to risk Don Taku because, you know, they could finally have Osprey Omega 2 or whatever. Like I just feel like for a show like Forbidden Door, they might be saving Osprey for that show. That's what my gut tells me, but I could be wrong.
I mean, definitely. I think Will would want to work if he was healthy, and he was supposed to face Sonata in the New Japan Cup, and if the booking was the same, Sonata would have beaten him to get to the final. So you could do that and have Sonata beat Osprey at Dantaku.
I guess since we're just thinking out the box here, the one person that comes to mind that is a big star that they could probably draw money with that's not really locked up in anything is Tetsuya Naito.
That's what I was saying earlier. Yeah.
Sorry.
Naito and Sonata.
Yeah, I think Naito and Sonata, even though they just did it, that was a tournament match. That might make sense to run it back because it's like, okay, we let you out of the group. You won your belt. Now it's time to pay dues. You know, the chicks are coming home to roost. Let's run it back.
Yeah. Or Taichi.
They could. I thought about
make it interesting. Same group.
It'd be like, all right, I saved you. I brought you here. I raised you up. Now give me a shot.
Yeah. I want mine.
But I don't know if that would be, I don't know. Some of these, I think that right now they need to be putting Sonata, if Sonata does win, they need to be putting him in situations where he's facing the old guard, guys that are proven draws to establish him as a draw.
Yeah.
I think that if they put him in any situation other than that, it's going to scream, he's not the real champion.
Right.
I just feel like it would be too soon to do Tanahashi because Tanahashi literally just challenged for the belt.
That's true, but then it's a new challenge for him.
Yeah.
I think something like Tanahashi makes more sense than say like an Ishii or, you know,
Goto.
Like a Goto or like a Taichi. All of those scream, you're not the real champion. You're just the guy holding the belt. And the real ace is still Okada. And if they do put the belt on him, they need to give him top end challengers like Naito's and guys like that.
Yeah. I had some questions here from the Dark Soldier. It says, given what happened in Mania and how deflating the ending was, does that further prove how much Sonata needs to win?
I don't know. I mean, I think honestly, the company's going to be fine if Okada wins. You know what I mean? Like, it's not going to be a terrible business decision because Okada is a proven business commodity. It's just going to be like, you wasted all of the fans' time and now this is bad booking and it's starting to become a little toxic. You know what I mean? Like, why are we watching this? And Gato already has a tendency to do repeat booking time and time again, especially with titles, especially with tournaments. And with Okada, I'm fine with Okada being a long-term champion, but I just don't see the point of them having pushed this guy, giving him a new look, giving him a new faction, had him win the tournament if we're just going to turn around and have him lose. Then at that point, the group's dead because I personally, and it's not that Sonata couldn't hypothetically be rehabbed, but it won't be against Okada because Okada's, ate his lunch at that point.
Yeah, if he loses it, he's definitely like just clear upper mid card, U.S. title, never title guy. But as far as like the question relating back to Mania, I mean, I do think it is kind of a similar situation of, that they built up Cody Rhodes. They had this whole thing of finishing the story, bringing in his dad's legacy, and Roman's had this super long title run, and they got Cody super hot, and there's a lot of people that were really invested and really thought that Cody was going to do it, and he didn't, and they are upset. They're hate WWE. They're not watching Raw tonight. So it's almost a kind of a similar situation.
I don't want to get too much in the weeds with that, but I'll tell you this. I felt very much for a long time that Roman Reigns was going to win. And here's the simple reason why. If you've paid attention to that company for any length of time, what did they do to every outsider that was ever a big deal, that they ever brought into the company or back to the company for that matter, when it came time for them to face the big champion? They never let them beat the big champion. They've never done that. They have no history of it. They've got no track record of it. And you're telling me that they're going to let the guy that left, who broke the throne, quote unquote, who riled up the forces against them and started a rival company, come back and beat Hulk Hogan, beat The Rock, beat Stone Cold, beat their all-time greatest champion of the modern era? That was never, ever, ever going to happen. That would have been like if they brought Ric Flair back in 1992 and then he went to WrestleMania and beat Hulk Hogan. Not happening. It's just never going. That was never going to happen. It doesn't matter if Triple H was the booker or Vince was the booker. It doesn't matter who that booker was. That he was never winning that match. And it is unfortunate because they got a lot of people to believe and they got a lot of people to pay a lot of money. It was just never going to happen.
Yeah. And
it was easy to see if you pay attention, but there's a lot of people that don't pay attention, unfortunately.
Yeah. He also asks, do you think the strong champion should battle the IWGP World Champion in a unification match at Dontaku? It's a way to do away with the belt, but in a dignified way.
They could do that, but I don't know. Kenta Okada probably has some juice to it. I don't know how well Kenta versus Sonata first time title defense is going to do.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that.
I'm confused. Is this from a previous conversation that you all have had about getting rid of the strong openweight championship, or
this is a listener question?
Okay. I think
there are people that think that title should go away, and I think I kind of agree.
I think KOPW should go away, but
yeah, I agree with that too.
Yeah, there's too many titles in New Japan right now.
Yeah, I think my thing is that the thing about the strong openweight championship, it's great for the shows where you're not sending over the IWGP champion here in the States. That was the thing. That was what made New Japan Strong for 2 years feel really important with Tom Lawler and his run, with Fred Rosser and his run, was that if you weren't going to give us the IWGP champion or the never openweight champion, we were going to have a championship of like that was just for New Japan Strong.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're going to take that away from them, it's just like, why did you go so far as to make tag titles as well?
Right.
Yeah. So it's are you going to start sending your champions over more frequently and not run concurrent tours? Or I wouldn't do away with the championship if you're not going to do the pre-pandemic New Japan live in the United States. If you're not sending over the whole roster with all the belts and there's a whole bunch of title matches that matter in the greater continuity of New Japan, don't get rid of the strong championships. Let the international scene have something that's theirs.
I don't think if you did get rid of it, it would be merged into the IWGP title. I could see it being more
into the never.
US.
Yeah, that's more comparable, title. Unless, is that Kai?
Yeah.
Not my dog. She's taking a nap.
Unless you wanted to do a big IWGP title defense in America. I don't know if that's going to be a big draw in Japan, but if you wanted to do, the strong champion against the IWGP champion, and if you can merge it or not merge it, whatever. But if you wanted to make that a title challenge for a US show, that might draw. That might actually mean something in America. I don't think it's going to mean anything in Japan, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the U.S. title should be the face of the U.S. shows.
I agree.
So you should merge the strong title, the U.S. title, and the U.S. title should be the thing that main events and is the headline thing for U.S. pay-per-views. But I guess we have to get the U.S. title back first to even have that conversation.
Yep.
Don't even get me started on that one. We'll be here all night.
So final predictions. We're all going Sonata.
Yes, it is time.
I'm predicting Okada to win. And this is basically what I did at WrestleMania. I predicted Roman to win, and I rooted with all my heart and soul for Cody to
all
that's what I'm going to do here.
All the adrenaline in your soul.
I want Sonata to win, but I think Okada's going to win, and I think we're going to be disappointed. And I think the greater U.S. fan base is just going to be like, yeah, of course this was going to happen. And I'm going to be like, there's no reason this should have happened.
I'm going to go with Sonata. I'm going to go with the right booking decision. I guess we'll see whether or not Gato makes the right decision come this weekend. Question here from the Dark Soldier. Why is it called Sakura Genesis? There's never any Genesis of McGillicuddy there, so why call it that? I don't.
Isn't it? It has something to do with the cherry blossom season, and right?
Yes, actually, it does.
See, I'm a little bit.
I'm proud of you. I'm very proud of you for that one. So in Japan, the fiscal and academic year goes from April to March. So right now at March, March had just finished. Usually cherry blossom season, the coming of spring. Spring is the arrival of new things, rebirth, yada, yada, yada. So yes, this is their way of saying it's their big spring show. New fiscal year, new us.
Nice. And also had a question from Wiz Factor. It says Sakura Genesis will be held at almost the 10th anniversary of Invasion Attack 2013. Just thought it would be nice for Keeping It Strong Style to reminisce about the Okada-Tanahashi main event, as well as talk about how important that match was to New Japan and pro wrestling in general.
Which title fight was this?
Which Okada-Tanahashi was this?
Which Okada-Tanahashi match are we talking about? I should have read the questions before we got here.
So Invasion Attack 2013, wouldn't that have been after the Rainmaker shock?
It's the rematch when Tanahashi got the belt back. Is that which one we're talking about? Oh my god, this is
I was seeing the Keeping It Strong Style reminisce. So I clocked out on that one. Okay. This is for the boys, not me.
Okay, so the deal here, this was their 5th title match. So remember last year or maybe the year before, you, me, and Rich, we did that reminisce of the 10-year anniversary. It was last year because we did the reminisce of the initial feud between Tanahashi and Okada. We covered the first 4 matches.
Yeah.
This is the 5th match. So this is after Wrestle Kingdom 7 when Okada regained the title against Tanahashi in what is generally considered one of their best matches in the series. And, honestly, it was a very, very, very important match because this was kind of the start of the slow descent of Tanahashi being the top ace and the rise of Okada being the top guy. I don't have everything in front of me, and I haven't watched the match in a while to tell you the ins and outs of it, but the basic gist of the story up to this point had been Okada shocked Tanahashi, and it was very clear that he was a wrestling genius who was so prodigious that his raw talent was capable of defeating Tanahashi at his zenith. But Tanahashi still had the key edge against him when it came to experience and game planning. And he was able to utilize a lot of the rookie mistakes that Okada had made in the early iterations of their matches to beat him and best him. And it really became apparent that on the big stage, like Wrestle Kingdom, he was still the man. But when Invasion Attack happened, this was right. Actually, I'm remembering, it's all coming back to me now. Okada ends up winning the New Japan Cup. I believe he beat Togi Makabe at the end of that tournament. And this was okay, you beat me at Wrestle Kingdom, but I'm ascending to a new level now. And he came into that match, and every game plan that Tanahashi had used in the past, working the arm, working the leg, basically Okada had scouted all that and come up with a new game plan and was able to basically show that not only do I have this prodigious level of talent, but I've also caught up in wrestling IQ and experience to you, and now you have no edge over me any longer, and you're fucked. And that was the part where after this, Tanahashi goes into desperation mode in his matches, and he starts working quasi heel and trying to find shortcuts because he no longer is capable of beating Okada based off of just his, experience alone. The match is fantastic. If you've never seen it, I highly recommend it. And it does the 2012 version of their feud is really great, but this is the match that takes them to the classic level where people start calling it like, the new generation of Flair Steamboat, where like their matches are the best that we've seen for generations. This match is the one that really set the tone and pace for that, essentially.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I haven't been following New Japan back in 2013. I know we've talked about the rivalry, and I forget I've watched so many Okada-Tanahashi matches now that I've got them all mixed up.
Like, after this, the only thing that was left for Okada to do to prove that he was Tanahashi's superior was to beat him in the Tokyo Dome. Because after this, he pretty much owns Tanahashi. This is the match where like Okada is firmly cemented as like, I'm not just the guy that shocked you all those years ago. I'm the new ace. This is it. And it would take still a few years before he beat him at Wrestle Kingdom 10, but like this is the one where it's like, all right, we're equals.
Nice.
That's it.
Wonder if that will have any, that history anniversary have any play into the result of the world title matchup. Guess we'll have to wait and see. So,
well, let's get into the news real quick. So, New Japan Pro Wrestling has announced Dominion in Osaka-jo Hall. That's going to occur on June 4th. So, very excited for that. Capital Collision is occurring on April 15th, so later this month, and a few matches were announced. New Japan Strong champion Kenta will defend against Eddie Edwards. This was made on the heels of the recent Impact show that we just reviewed. New Japan Strong Tag Team Title champions, the Motor City Machine Guns, will defend against Okada and Tanahashi, as well as Aussie Open. Fred Rosser will be taking on Juice Robinson in a grudge match. Rocky Romero, Tomohiro Ishii, Leo Rush, and Clark Connors, and the DKC will be taking on Volador Jr., Mike Bailey, Kushida, Kevin Knight, and Gabe Kidd. That sounds awesome. And finally, Shane Hayes and Bad Dude Tito of Team DK will be taking on Royce Isaacs and Jarrell Nelson. The next day, Collision in Philly takes place on April 16th, and announced for that match, or for that show, Tetsuya Naito and Hiromu Takahashi take on the Bull Club members Kenta and Chase Owens. Finally, there was an announcement earlier, I believe today, for Tamashi. Hiroki Goto will be taking on Chris Basso on April 14th in Adelaide. And the big main event, April 16th, Robbie Eagles one-on-one with Shingo Takagi is official for Melbourne.
Nice. And we just have 2 questions here, and we'll get to recommended match of the week. Death Triangle 720 says, how do you feel about New Japan's direction right now in 2023?
I think that we are in what I would kind of classify as like a rebuilding period. Definitely there's been almost nothing but positive signs of life for the overall product, especially coming out of this past year's Wrestle Kingdom. There's definitely some things you could criticize, but this most recent tournament was, really a show that they're going with new talent, new stories, new faction shakeups, and they've brought people back from Excursion, and they're starting to show signs that a lot of the people that are out on Excursion, they've got intentions to bring them back and get them in the mix as well. So while do I think we're right now in the middle of like say 2017 2018 peak New Japan, like is everything firing on all cylinders, and we're ready to say, like, this is the premier period of New Japan? Like, no. But in a lot of ways, it reminds me of, like, 2012, 2013 New Japan, when they were coming out of the Dark Ages and they were gearing up for that legendary run. It feels like we were sort of in a down period the last few years for a variety of reasons. We don't need to go over them all again. But, it's no secret that in the midst of, the pandemic, there were a lot of issues, and they've really started to put their best foot forward in a lot of different ways. And do I feel like right now the company is super hot and has all the buzz in the world and is the talk of the wrestling town? Like, no. But for fans, it's extremely satisfying as a company right now. And there's no reason that within 6 months to a year that they couldn't be doing top end business once again. And not only that, but like all the work they're doing with other companies and different shifts in their booking philosophy and their, business patterns. Like, I think it's all good, honestly.
What do you think, Karen?
Cautiously optimistic is where I'm at right now. They like Josh said, they are making some moves. They started, investing in new people. They started they're giving platforms to younger talent. And the problem is that they need to stay consistent. They can't keep going back to reliable. Like whenever they're in a pinch, oh, don't worry, we still have Okada around. Don't worry, we still have Hiromu around. They need to start taking more, like they're doing well. I would like to see them start taking a couple more chances on other people too. Yeah, I know it's baby steps, but like we don't need another Okada G1 win. We don't need another Hiromu Best of Super Juniors win. Give me something fresh. Give me something. Make me believe that you have other credible contenders in your company besides literally a handful of people.
Yeah, I agree.
One thing. Oh, go ahead, Jeremy.
So yeah, I agree with that. I would say, I just feel like the first quarter of the year, I think it's been a very strong quarter overall. Like I mentioned, we've seen a lot of faction shakeup, a lot of great matches. And so overall, I think the direction is going good. We're starting to see some new people get pushed. But I mean, overall, you want something new, something fresh. And we've been, beating a dead horse with this, the LA Dojo guys, Wise and Coughlin and Kid and all those guys, Connors, why aren't they in Japan consistently? There's so many great talent that they have access to that are their talent. It's not like we're asking them to bring in a bunch of AEW guys. Like you have Connor, Coughlin.
People do though.
I mean, yes, I want the AEW dream matches. I want Danielson to come over. I want more Kenny. I want those guys to come over. But you have Coughlin under contract. You have Clark Connors. You have Kevin Knight. You have the DKC. You have Filthy Tom Lawler, JR Kratos. Like you have all these great guys that you can mix in to what you're doing in New Japan right now that would freshen things up.
Villalobos, Lucci, Ugg, the big names, Richards, all of them.
Oh man,
no, actually, I'm enjoying
Richards
Tanahashi.
At least went through the dojos.
I'm just playing. I like those guys.
No, but I mean, U.S., Australia, the Rev Pro partnership, like they have access to so many great talent. Like they don't have to rely on the old people all the time because they have guys that are great and that they can push and that can be stars.
Well, one thing I will say in defense of the company, there's going to be growing pains while they're
absolutely
starting to bring in, and give guys like, say, a Shota Umino, who admittedly has not knocked it out of the park. He's done well, and I think is showing a lot of positive signs. But, we've said this before, Tanahashi was not knocking it out of the park in his first few years in the company after excursion or after graduation. Like, it took a while for some of the big name. I mean, same thing with Nakamura. Nakamura wasn't Nakamura when he first got, even after his first couple of title runs, he still wasn't Nakamura. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's going to be a little while. And I think what we're starting to see, sadly, some of the guys we love that are older, they're starting to get down cycled, including Tanahashi. And I think some of the guys that we see as like old reliable are starting to be in that transitionary phase. I think that Okada and Hiromu specifically are like linchpins of crossing the bridge generationally between the young guys and helping bring them to the main event level while they down cycle your Naitos and your Tanahashis and some of the other names into more appropriate roles. And so it's going to take a little bit of time, but I do agree. I want to see them bring in people that have been in their system for years and haven't been given opportunities. I think it's high time that Clark Connors and Gabe Kidd and Alex Coughlin and those guys come back. It's time for Yui Mora and Tsuji to be given chances. It's time for this stuff to be happening and them to push even the guys that are there. Show, like, what are we doing? You know what I mean? So it's time. It's time for them to start branching out. And while they're doing that, they're still going to need to also draw, and they're still also going to need to utilize those big stars. I mean, you look at All Japan in the 90s, the story goes that one day, Misawa took off his mask and he was a star. It's like, no, Jumbo was still champion for like another 2 to 3 years while Misawa and Kawada and all those guys were getting up to the level to be able to headline. It didn't happen overnight.
Right. You gonna say something, Karen?
No, I'm being a bad guest, and I'm like kind of like corner watching Raw in the bottom corner of my computer, and Cody just got like 28 F5s from Brock Lesnar, and is like laying.
Brock Lesnar turned on him and gave him that F5.
He gave him several, like 4 in the ring, 1 through the table, put the ring steps in the ring, smashed him down on it, and stood over like the remains of his body. It's a bit much.
I went to go get a beer, and my girlfriend kind of clued me in. So like at the beginning of the show, Cody came out and challenged Roman, and Roman was like, "I'll only fight you in a tag match, and you have to find someone who if they tag with you, they can never challenge for the title. Good luck with that." But there was already a stipulation where Brock cannot challenge Roman again after SummerSlam.
Yeah.
So babyface Brock comes out, and it's like very clear, like, oh, he's gonna turn on Cody tonight.
Yeah. He did. He just murdered Cody. Now he's getting ready to take a chair to his head on top of the ring steps in the center of the ring. No, no Jay White.
And you know what? Cody's not going to beat Brock in that feud.
Nope, sure isn't. And then, 3 hours of Raw, there was one women's segment that came in the third hour. So, but anyway, I digress.
Last question, so we can end the show, and it's actually WWE related. Friend of the show, Bash, said non-related NJPW has Inoki's vision of MMA and pro wrestling being achieved now that has that been achieved now that the Fed has been bought by the parent company of the UFC. All jokes aside, what do you think it means for the streaming services around the world? Do they merge it into one, make it more expensive, or keep it separate since the fan bases are probably a lot different from each other? All love and good thoughts, good vibes, Bash.
Yeah, I mean, so for those who don't know, the sale has officially happened today. The parent company of Endeavor that owns UFC, they've bought in WWE. They're going to merge them into a new publicly traded company, with Endeavor having 51% control of the company and WWE having 49%. So yeah, obviously that's going to lead to all kind of business opportunities. I do think eventually there's a ton of money to be made to have UFC and WWE on one big streaming service. I think that with the new leadership, I think they're going to try and follow the same pay-per-view model that they're doing right now with UFC, where you have to subscribe to ESPN Plus, but then to get the pay-per-views, you have to pay the extra monthly fee. I think we've been kind of seeing that shift in wrestling happen. Even New Japan has been slowly doing it with some of their produce shows and some of their other random pay-per-view, like the All-Star Junior Festival stuff. So I think wrestling is kind of swinging back into trying to get people to pay for pay-per-views. Also, AEW has already been doing that since their inception. So I do think there is a potential where you could have, whether it's ESPN Plus or something else, where UFC and WWE are in the same thing, and then to get the pay-per-views, you will have to pay $60, $70, whatever it is, a month to get those extra pay-per-views.
For the love of God, whatever it is, let it be better than Peacock and not as terrible as Bleacher Report. Like Fight TV, like let that be the template. Affordable, like everybody can participate, because that's the thing, is that I feel like while they are, separate and entities of their own, if you make at a certain point, you're going to end up pricing out your own audience. There are people that, regardless of how much it costs, are going to pay for it. But we've been spoiled ever since the launch of the network, that the pay-per-views are almost always, if I'm not mistaken, or consistently, they're always free. It's included in your $10 subscription. It's never been more than that. If they're going to move to a more pay-per-view, like ironically, a return to a pay-per-view format, but under their own control, you risk losing parts of your fan base. Especially the casual fans that are like, this is great and all, but I can't pay $60 for a TV show. That $60 is groceries for a week for some people. So,
yeah. So, guys, this is what is going to happen, and this is coming from someone that watches copious amounts of mixed martial arts, has been following the UFC since 1993, and more importantly, has really paid a lot of attention to what has happened since the Endeavor Group has purchased the UFC. They're going to maximize profits, period. So what that means is they're going to find every single money-making avenue that Vince McMahon has never dreamed of to capitalize on this company. Does that mean that your favorite wrestlers in WWE might be sporting,
Venom,
like sponsor placed, products from like Venom or Reebok and all? I'm not saying they're all going to look the same, but are they going to have to get their stuff approved and sponsored by whatever company is in partnership with Endeavor? Yeah, that's probably going to happen because they've already done that in the UFC. And so don't be surprised if all your wrestlers are walking product placements from here on out. Also, don't be surprised if at the very least, the big 4 pay-per-views go back to pay-per-view. But more likely, they're going to probably move all the PLEs to pay-per-view. You'll be able to watch, Peacock for $5 or whatever, but you're going to pay $60 plus. I think right now, a lot of the UFC pay-per-views are, and here's another thing. It's not going to be a fixed price. It's going to go up year over year over year because that's exactly what the UFC has done. And their pay-per-views, sometimes, I think some of them range $60 to $80 depending on what version you're paying for. They're going to do that with WWE. And I know that the argument against that is people are going to say, well, that's going to turn people off from the fan base. Yeah, but there's going to be people that pay and they don't really care. They just want to make the most amount of money that they possibly can. They took a $4 billion purchase and made 3 times that much money, and now the company's worth $12 billion.
Yeah.
And then that's why they were able to buy WWE for $9 billion or whatever the price finally ends up being. Don't be surprised if, like in New Japan, not only do they have advertised sponsors like you saw at WrestleMania, but if the entire mat is just covered in logos, very similar to New Japan, they're going to do everything in their power to make as much money off of WWE. They did not buy this company for $9 billion to not recoup that money and then make it back triple, quadruple. They have intentions to bleed you of the most money they can. Right now, if you're a UFC fan and you're actually paying for all the pay-per-views, you're paying over $1,500 annually just to watch the pay-per-views, not to mention what you're already paying. Not to mention what you already pay for ESPN Plus as a subscription service. And that doesn't even include their other subscription service for $10 a month for Fight Pass. They have multiple streams of revenue. It's going to be the same thing with WWE. And don't be surprised if the Peacock service goes to a tiered service as well, where you get like a free version and then this version and then this version. This is all going to happen. And they're probably going to raise rates year over year. They've already talked about Peacock is going to start jacking those prices up because they got like 20 million subscribers. So it's going to become very expensive to be a WWE fan in the near future. And that's not even just, accounting what they already pay to buy their fake belts and shit.
When it comes to the nefarious means one may use to not necessarily watch said live stream in the most, legal sense of the matter, is UFC pirated a lot like wrestling streams are? Like
way more, but they're also very judicious about stopping those and also pressing charges if they're able to, and they try and they have.
Yeah, that's what I figured, but I figured that because that's instantly going to become part of the conversation at some point. Is like how Joe Schmo, every guy who can't afford $1,500 a year to watch, not necessarily they would have to up their game on every single pay-per-view to make it consistently worth $1,500 a year. You can't have a slide through with like Backlash or your a really weak B tier pay per view at that point, right? Like everything would have to feel like it's more, wouldn't it?
Potentially, that might be your one benefit. Is it might cause the booking to actually improve because the booking was undoubtedly better in WWE when they actually were on a pay-per-view model and it wasn't on their own subscription service. So because they relied on that, but like for instance, with the ESPN deal, they get paid the same amount no matter what for pay-per-view. Okay. So they get, and a lot of WWE's current deals are similar to that. They might just end up getting a wholesale deal and putting the pay-per-views, changing the PLEs to pay-per-views and then still just profiting regardless of how they perform, and kind of putting the impetus on whoever their business partner is, like Peacock or NBC Universal or Fox or whoever, to pay them. I mean, because they're about to have a TV renegotiation anyways. Who knows? They might go to ESPN too, and they might just get grandfathered into the ESPN deal. And like UFC pay-per-views don't do that well anymore. They have literally been able to move away from a star-based model where they were relying on George St. Pierre and Brock Lesnar and Ronda Rousey and, John Jones and Conor McGregor to drive their revenue. Now they've taken the power away from the fighters and just put it on the company, because they're very similar to WWE. They just make money hand over fist regardless, because they've got a flat rate deal from ESPN, period. And it's been extremely lucrative for them. And yeah, their pay-per-views are not better for it after having moved to that model, but they make more money. So who knows? Maybe that will happen with WWE too. It's hard to tell. The one good thing though is I could see a scenario where you get a similar to like the bundle packages that are out there with streaming services, where it's like you get ESPN and Disney and blah, 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 and Hulu or whatever. I could see a situation where you pay $20 a month and you get Fight Pass and WWE Network. That might be, possible.
Bring back the network.
All right. Well, let's close up the show here with recommended match of the week. So last week for the recommended match, Josh recommended the Invasion Attack 2013 pay-per-view for the IWGP Junior Tag Team titles, the Time Splitters, Alex Shelley and Kushida versus Apollo 55, Prince Devitt and Ryusuke Taguchi.
If you've never seen this match, you need to see this match, not only because it's one of the greatest tag team matches in the history of the sport, and in my opinion, I think it's the best junior tag team match in New Japan history, period. But it's also, from a historical standpoint, probably the most influential junior tag match that has ever occurred anywhere. Almost any high-flying style, fast-paced, high offense tag team since 2009 that you're a fan of, they watched this match and were influenced by it. And it is like a perfect, and keep in mind, like Apollo 55, if you've never seen the popularity of Apollo 55 in their heyday with Prince Devitt and Ryusuke Taguchi, like, you need to see this, because they were like really, really, really hot, really, really, really beloved. And it's also cool to kind of see the Motor City Machine Guns play like quasi heel in this match, but it's just awesome. It's like a melding together of a smorgasbord of styles. You see like British catch wrestling, you see, brawling on the outside, high flying offense, lucha libre, strong style, pretty much everything is sort of melded in there. And it's laid out. Some people call this a spot fest, and it definitely is, but there's so much intricate thought into the double team maneuvers and counter reversals, and it's literally taking place almost from the offset. It's just a really high octane, high fast paced energy match, and it goes for over 20 minutes. And it's really incredible. I'm not always the biggest Prince Devitt fan personally, but there was a point in this match where he does this incredible dive into the audience that like is legitimately breathtaking. When it happened, it definitely had match of the year contender, applause and attention at the time. And I think after all these years, it still holds up as being probably the best junior tag match in New Japan history. And that's including everything involving like the Time Splitters and the Young Bucks and Red Dragon, and all those teams had great matches, but I think this is the one.
Nice. Then for the Excursion match of the week, it was
4 3/4.
Coward.
I'm not 5 on it, but I love it, and I think it's great.
For the Excursion match of the week, we picked the IWGP US title match with Kenny Omega defending against Jeff Cobb last week on AEW Dynamite. Thought this was a very good match, also not to the level of the Vikingo match Kenny had the previous week. But overall, really good matchup. It wasn't the main event. It's kind of in the middle of the show. Kenny had to overcome, the power of Jeff Cobb, Jeff would overcome Kenny, and Kenny was coming in hurt from the beatdown from the Blackpool Combat Club, and also distracted with Don Callis being taken out. So Kenny was a little bit off of his game and really having to do some tricks to catch up with Jeff Cobb, and towards the end just killed him with V-triggers, got him up for the one-wing angel, walked him around the ring, which is very impressive to see how strong Kenny is. Drops Jeff and gets the win here, and gets a successful defense of the IWGP US title.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that match quite a bit, and it definitely I thought that Kenny gave a lot to Jeff in that match.
Yeah, I'm like 4.25 on that match.
Yeah, that was very good. This coming week, for the recommended match of the week, we're kicking it back to the 80s, and I'm recommending from January 6th, 1983, the trilogy match between Kuniaki Kobayashi and the original Tiger Mask, Satoru Sayama.
Nice. Then for the excursion match of the week, we're going to go to the WrestleCon Super Show, and it's going to be United Empire, Jeff Cobb and Aussie Open against Time Machine, Alex Shelley, Chris Sabin, and Kushida. Well, Karen, thanks so much for joining us on the show. Tell our listeners where they can find you online.
If you would like to join my journey with wrestling, head over to postwrestling.com. I do primarily Stardom and New Japan coverage, as well as a monthly column on the Japanese women's wrestling scene and the overall international landscape for those who want to go to Japan. Also, you can find me over on Instagram at Hey Karen Sensei.
Nice. Well, thanks, Karen, once again for joining us and helping us preview Sakura Genesis. So,
It's been my pleasure.
Next week, we'll be back to review Sakura Genesis and see if Sonata's story was able to be completed. If you enjoyed today's show, please consider making a donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. Make sure you connect with us on social media. On Twitter, the show is at KI Strong Style. You can follow the network at Social Suplex. You can follow me at Jeremy L. Donovan. Follow us on Instagram at Social Suplex. On Reddit, I'm the Pro Black Guy. Y'all just Keeping It Strong Style. You can email me, Jeremy at socialsuplex.com. And check out all the other shows that we have here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. One Nation Radio, hosted by Rich Latta and James Boyd. The Grave Consequences, hosted by Caleb and Maserati. All Things Elite, hosted by Floyd and Austin. The AEW Match Guide Podcast, hosted by Sir Sam. And the Meet the Press Slam, hosted by Danny. And that's going to be it. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review. And we will catch you next week on Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
Ichiban.
Thank you for listening to Keepin' It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.